Chapter 1428. Xian turned around. In front of him stood a woman. She was dressed in a spotless white dress. The woman smiled. I am Xianchu's master. Xianchu's master. Xian looked at the woman. Whirling sect. The woman nodded. Yes. You can call me Yuzun. They all call me that. Xian was silent. The woman smiled. Don't worry. I have no ill intentions towards you. Whirling sect will not ally with an Yuan. Xian looked at the woman. Why? The woman smiled. There are two reasons. First, I am good friends with the ancestor of Daoting, Zhou Xian. As for the second reason, I can't tell you for now. Xian smiled. Don't you want the Dao scripture? Yuzun said. We want it, but we won't snatch it from you. Xian looked at Yuzun. Why? Yuzun smiled. I won't answer this question. As she spoke, she looked at the space 100 zhang in front of Xian. Do you really think you can destroy this teleportation array? Xian said in a deep voice. Sir, please give me some pointers. Yuzun smiled. In that space there are at least 5 consolidation realm experts protecting the array. If you go in, do you think you can fight against 5 consolidation realm experts? Xian shook his head. I can't. Yuzun walked in front of Xian and looked at Xian. Now you have 2 choices. First, take the 5th dimension Tendo and run as far as you can. If you want to escape with the help of ancient God Abyss, they might not be able to catch you. Second, hand over the Dao scripture. Xian smiled. Give it to Whirling Sect? Yuzun nodded. If you give it to my Whirling Sect, I can promise you that my Whirling Sect will protect your 5th dimension. Xian shook his head. I don't believe you. Venerable Yu smiled. Why? Xian looked at Yuzun. Are you the sect leader of Whirling Sect? Yuzun shook his head. No, but the Whirling sect leader is my senior sister. Normally she would not go back on her word. Xian smiled and said, average. Venerable Yu smiled and said, then do you have a better choice? Xian looked at Yuzun. Miss Yu, I can choose to die together with you. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and transformed into a streak of sword light that vanished into the horizon. Indiscriminate destruction. Yuzun spoke softly. Would you do that? Right at this moment the space before her suddenly started trembling. Yuzun frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene. So quickly? Looks like he can't wait any longer. Xian returned to the 5th dimension. He looked at the world below him in silence. Passive. The current situation in the 5th dimension was too passive. Although the ancient God Abyss had agreed to help, he knew that if the price was too high the ancient God Abyss would definitely retreat. Because it was impossible for the ancient God Abyss to become enemies with so many forces. Currently, if the ancient God Abyss retreated, the 5th dimension would not be able to fight back. Why did the Whirling World and the ancient God Abyss join hands? It was because they wanted to deal with the forces behind him. However, he was aggrieved because he did not know what forces were behind him. What forces were behind him? Xian was also a little confused. He only knew of Qing. As for the others, he wasn't familiar with them, including the ant from the Netherworld Hall who had come earlier. Thinking of this, Xian sighed softly. Why did he feel like a scapegoat? At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Xian. It was the Sky Sovereign. The Sky Sovereign looked at Xian and said with a smile, You are very calm. If I'm not wrong, you must have contacted the people behind you. Am I right? Xian was silent. He wanted to curse. Contact? I will contact your mother. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Xian's position as crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Xian is a crown prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. Why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was afraid and didn't dare to look at the great elder, but she didn't leave. Instead she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights in Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. But the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly said angrily, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to discard him or not. Men, drag her away. At this moment the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly smiled and said, she should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder said coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he's fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew it was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the position of crown prince. Why are you shouting? As he said this he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. The right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. But she didn't cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. I'm Zhang Mu. Greetings, Crown Prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the Crown Prince I'll need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. I'm willing to go through fire and water for the Crown Prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking toward the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This young man was Zhou Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Zhou Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar when Zhou Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Zhou Xian his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time Zhou Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Zhou Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, your man? As he spoke he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked up to Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Ping. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yiling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yiling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting? Leave. Yiling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new prince Yilang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yilang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, Young Master Yilang inherits the prince's position and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yiling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry and only held her cheek tightly. Yilang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yilang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yilang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang and when he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yiling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe and the robe was tattered and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yilang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yilang and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man? As he spoke he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 1429. The appearance of these experts caused the entire starry sky to tremble. This expanse of the universe couldn't endure so many experts at all. Meanwhile, Li Qiuheng gazed at the Heavenly Exalt and smiled. Heavenly Exalt, my Black Illusion sect has a total of 8 Consolidation Realm experts and 22 Dao Transformation Realm experts. The same goes for the Profound School Dao Returnance Institute and Shao Clan. What about you? Everyone gazed at the Heavenly Exalt. The heavenly exalt grinned. She knew that the members of the whirling sect wanted to see in Yuan's strength. At this moment she had no choice but to reveal in Yuan's strength. Because if in Yuan didn't reveal his formidable strength, then he wouldn't have the right to speak. The heavenly exalt smiled. Come out. As soon as she finished speaking, 12 black-robed experts suddenly appeared behind her. The expressions of Li Qiuheng and the others changed slightly when they witnessed this scene. All 12 of them were actually Consolidation Realm experts. If the Heavenly Exalt and Earthly Exalt were included, then it was a total of 14 Consolidation Realm experts. Besides that, there were 30 Dao Transformation Realm experts. It could be said that In Yuan had the most experts amongst the great powers. At this moment, the members of the Black Illusion sect didn't dare underestimate In Yuan. Meanwhile, a white-robed old man walked forward. He glanced at them and smiled. Everyone, I'm the old man, the grand elder of the Shao clan, Shao Pingxing. I think I should mention something in advance, and it's that there are only 6 scrolls of the Dao scripture. If we kill Yi Xian, then how will the 6 scrolls be divided? Everyone fell silent when they heard this. How to divide the Dao scripture was a very important question. Shao Pingxing smiled. We wouldn't have to kill each other then, right? Meanwhile, the Heavenly Exalt suddenly said, Elder Shao, I think it's not suitable for us to talk about this now. Shao Pingxing gazed at the Heavenly Exalt. But this isn't a problem that can't be resolved without discussing it. The Heavenly Exalt gazed at Shao Pingxing. Elder Shao, the premise of this question is that we're able to kill Yi Xian and annihilate the power that stands behind him. However, do you think we're 100% confident in our ability? Shao Pingxing chuckled and said, It's not that I look down on Yi Xian, but I really can't find any force in the entire universe that can fight against our joint forces. Even with the help of the ancient god Abyss and the Whirling sect, it was impossible. According to what I know, the Whirling sect has already chosen not to interfere in this matter. As for the ancient god Abyss, haven't they already left the 5th dimension? The Empyrean shook his head. Elder Shao, the influence behind Yi Xian is unknown to us, and the unknown means that anything is possible. Shao Pingxing was about to speak when Li Qiuheng suddenly said, What the Heavenly Venerate said makes sense. I think it's still too early for us to talk about the Dao scriptures. It wasn't appropriate either. It wouldn't be too late to discuss the matter of the Dao scripture after he destroyed Yi Xian and the forces behind him. And if we talk about it now, it's very likely to cause some unnecessary trouble and problems. Hu Buhui also nodded. Let's get rid of Yi Xian first. Seeing this, Shao Pingxing did not insist. He immediately nodded. Then let's get rid of Yi Xian first. At this moment Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed. Speaking of which, with so many of us, will the forces behind Yi Xian be so scared that they won't dare to show themselves? If that's the case, then this trip to the 5th dimension will be too boring. The Empyrean chuckled. Let's go. Let's go and meet Yi Xian. Everyone nodded. Soon everyone disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in the sky above the Dao city. When so many experts appeared in the sky above the Dao city, everyone in the Dao city was petrified. Then everyone fell into despair. Even revered me felt despair at this moment. So many experts. How could the current 5th dimension fight against them? Below, Yi Xian walked out of the sword hall and looked up at the sky. When he saw so many experts in the sky, he fell silent. They really wanted to gang up on Yi Xian. Yi Xian slowly walked towards the sky. At this moment, a little girl appeared beside him. It was Nian Nian. Nian Nian grabbed Yi Xian's hand and softly said, I'll go with you. Yi Xian smiled. Okay. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu and Lan Xiu and Lian Wanli also appeared beside him. There were also 2 people he was very familiar with. They were Xiao Dao and Qian Imo. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Dao and smiled. You shouldn't have come at this time. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian and said, If I didn't come now, I might not have the chance to come in the future. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He looked at Qian Imo. Miss Qian Imo, what about you? Although he had slept with Qian Imo, that was Sister Nian's sin. There were feelings between him and Qian Imo, but there didn't seem to be any. On the other hand, they had dual cultivated. What was this? Were they sleeping partners? Qian Imo looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak when the celestial venerate in the sky suddenly smiled. Yi Xian, you seem to have a lot of female confidants. Yi Xian looked up at the celestial venerate and said with a smile, Celestial venerate, to be honest, aren't you overestimating me? Let me count TSK 46 Consolidation Realm, more than 100 Dao Attainment Realm. I'm only at Dao Defense Realm. Aren't you guys going too far? The Celestial Venerate looked at Zhou Xian and said with a smile, I've investigated you. You had many opponents in the past but they're all dead. Why? There's a very important reason and that's because they looked down on you. They didn't go all out. They always gave you a chance to grow. So you're alive but they're dead. We won't make their mistakes. Look, we value you enough, right? Zhou Xian was silent. The Celestial Venerate looked around and said with a smile, Zhou Xian, where are your people? Zhou Xian looked around and cursed in his heart, I also want to know where my people are. At this time Li Qiuheng suddenly smiled. If an expert appears with our strength even if they're millions of miles away, we'll still be able to sense them. Unfortunately, I don't sense any powerful aura. As he said this, he looked at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian, don't tell me the people behind you are afraid? Below, Zhou Xian suddenly turned to Venerable Me and the rest. You guys go. Venerable Me and the rest were stunned. Zhou Xian smiled. There's no point in staying here. Venerable Me was silent. Zhou Xian looked at Guan Yin below. Go. Guan Yin was silent. Go. It was obvious that the fifth dimension had no chance of winning. With all the experts of the whirling world and the dark abyss joining hands, how could Zhou Xian resist? It should be known that these factions had a foundation of hundreds of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. And what about Zhou Xian? His biggest support was Nian Yan, but now Nian Yan had become a little girl. Not only could she not help Zhou Xian, but she also needed Zhou Xian to protect her. It could be said that the fifth dimension was a dead end. At this time Zhou Xian looked at Dao City below. Everyone leave. He did not ask everyone to face the whirling world and the ancient god abyss with him, because that was equivalent to sending others to their deaths. In fact, he himself wanted to run away. But he knew that he could not escape and he did not want to escape. He promised Sister Nian that he would protect this part of the universe, and he would do his best to do what he promised. Hearing Zhou Xian's words, the people below had a complicated expression. They knew that Zhou Xian wanted them to escape. Zhou Xian looked at the people below and smiled. I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to protect you. Below, countless people suddenly slowly bowed to Zhou Xian. In fact, Zhou Xian not only changed the fifth dimension, but he also changed the fate of everyone. In the past, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and the Dao world did not have a single true release realm expert, but now, let alone true release realm experts, there were many Dao validation realm experts. Moreover, Zhou Xian also shared the Dao scripture. It could be said that Zhou Xian changed everyone's fate. At this moment, when many people heard Zhou Xian asking them to leave, their hearts were incomparably complicated. Unknowingly, they had already regarded the fifth dimension as their home. Here it was really harmonious. In the sky, Zhou Xian smiled again and said, Everyone, it is I, Zhou Xian, who does not have the ability to protect everyone in this part of the universe. It has nothing to do with you. Below, an old man suddenly said in a trembling voice, Dao Master, why don't you escape? If you escape with your talent, you might be able to contend against these people in the future. Escape? Zhou Xian smiled lightly. They won't let me escape. Of course, I won't escape either. As he said that, he turned to look at Nian Yan beside him and said with a smile, I swore to you before. At that time I said that I would live and die with the five-dimensional universe in the future. Although I was just playing tricks at that time, I never thought that this oath would actually come true. Nian Yan nodded slightly. She tightly held on to Zhou Xian's hand. I will go with you. Zhou Xian smiled. Okay. As he spoke, he looked at Dao City below. Everyone stop wasting time. Let's go. Below, many people hesitated for a moment before fleeing one after another. This was a battle that they had no chance of winning. But there were still some people who stayed. Of course, there were not many. Zhou Xian suddenly looked at Venerable Me. At this moment, an old man appeared beside Venerable Me. The person who came was Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy said softly, They can let those people below go, but they won't let us go. Zhou Xian looked at Bai Dizzy and smiled. Bai Dizzy, as far as I know, your escaping skills are top-notch. Why don't you escape? Bai Dizzy looked at Zhou Xian. You are doubting's only hope. If you die, then doubting really doesn't exist anymore. If doubting is gone, there is not much meaning in me living. So, let me accompany you to death. Zhou Xian was speechless. Venerable Me suddenly said, Bai Dizzy is right. You are the doubting's last hope. If you perish today, then doubting will have no more hope. If doubting has no more hope, then what's the point of us living? As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Today, let us accompany you on your last journey. Yi Xian smiled. Then he said, I didn't expect that we would have to live and die together today. Life is so wonderful. As he spoke, he gazed at Xianxia and the others. His gaze swept past them with a complicated expression. I really want to let all of you go, but I know that all of you definitely won't. When he spoke up to this point, he grinned. All of you wanted to return the favor in the afterlife, but I feel like they won't allow me to have an afterlife. So I'm sorry. If there is a next life, please don't meet a man like me. Even I feel like I'm trash. Zhang Wenxiu gazed at Yi Xian. You've finally spoken the truth. Yi Xian laughed. He glanced at the women again and said, I don't want to see all of you die because that would be worse than death. So let me die before all of you. As he spoke, he looked up at Venerable Tianji and the others and said softly, I want to defy the heavens and change my fate. I want to protect all of you in the fifth dimension by myself. But I can't do it. Reality is just so cruel. As he spoke, the blood within his body suddenly surged. In the next moment, a flame suddenly ignited within his body. Bloodline ignition. That wasn't all. His soul actually started to ignite as well. In a certain distant starry sky, a woman in a white robe suddenly stopped. She seemed to have sensed something, and she clenched her fists tightly while her eyes almost split apart from rage. Brother! Wait for me! Wait for me! As she spoke, she suddenly vanished at the end of the starry sky, and everywhere she passed was annihilated inch by inch. Chapter 1430. In the sky above Dao City, Yi Xian's ignition of his soul and bloodline shocked everyone. Even the celestial venerables and the others were shocked. They didn't expect Yi Xian to directly ignite his bloodline and soul. The celestial venerables stared at Yi Xian. Where is the person behind you? She had been waiting for the person behind Yi Xian to appear. But now there was no one. Could it be that Yi Xian didn't have any force behind him? Or could it be that the force behind Yi Xian wasn't strong at all? After seeing the whirling sect and in Yuan joining forces, the force behind him was afraid. They didn't dare to appear. Below, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Celestial venerables, I want to see the power of a consolidation realm expert before I die. Can you satisfy me? The celestial venerables looked at Yi Xian. Where is the person behind you? I'm afraid he won't dare to appear. Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed. Just like the ancient god Abyss, once the price is too high, no one will be willing to protect Yi Xian. So Yi Xian must have been abandoned. He has been abandoned. The celestial venerables scanned the surroundings, but still didn't sense any powerful aura. No one appeared. At this moment, Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed. Yi Xian, didn't you want to see the power of a consolidation realm expert? I'll fulfill your wish. With that, he suddenly disappeared. Down below, Yi Xian laughed. Bring it on. With that, he leaped up and slashed at the sky with his sword. Dao sword. This slash was unprecedentedly powerful. After igniting his bloodline and soul, Yi Xian's strength skyrocketed like a volcanic eruption. And the moment Yi Xian slashed with his sword, he also used his Dao seal. With the enhancement of the Dao seal, bloodline, and soul, although he wasn't at the Dao attainment realm, his aura was several times stronger than an average Dao attainment realm expert. With this slash, a trace of shock flashed in the eyes of the celestial venerables. Yi Xian was only at the Dao defense realm. He was actually able to display such a powerful sword. The Empyrean looked down at Yi Xian, truly a monster. At the moment when Yi Xian slashed out with his sword, a fist print swept down from the sky and directly blasted on Yi Xian's sword. Boom. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian returned to his original position. Li Qiuheng also returned to his original position. On his right fist there was a deep sword scar. At this moment, Li Qiuheng's eyes turned solemn. This Yi Xian's strength had actually reached such a level. Meanwhile, the distant heavenly exalt suddenly said, He's still getting stronger. Everyone looked at Yi Xian and saw that Yi Xian's aura was still rising crazily as if there was no limit. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's body was slowly turning illusory. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up at Li Qiuheng. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. A ray of sword light shot into the sky from below. A strand of monstrous sword energy shook the heavens and the earth, and it was so powerful that all the experts in the surroundings were visibly moved. Li Qiuheng's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly clenched his right fist. At the instant he clenched his fist, the space around his fist suddenly transformed into a spatial vortex. In the next moment he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The spatial vortex suddenly swept down, and the entire sky actually warped at this moment. Meanwhile Yi Xian's sword arrived before him. Bang! The spectators watched as Yi Xian's sword slashed against the spatial vortex. The entire heavens and the earth trembled violently, and then the spatial vortex exploded apart and transformed into nothingness. The sword continued forward and slashed straight at Li Qiuheng. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Li Qiuheng's eyes. He flicked his sleeve, took a step forward, squatted down, clenched his right fist and then smashed it down. Obliterate. A strand of obliterating energy swept down, and everywhere it passed space was obliterated. Bang! Yi Xian and his sword were blasted back to where they stood earlier, and the space before him and Li Qiuheng had become pitch black. At the same time, a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. In the sky, Li Qiuheng looked down at Yi Xian and said, "It's over." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then his figure plunged down. This charge seemed as if he intended to smash this expanse of the heavens and the earth into pieces. It was an extremely shocking sight. Yi Xian's eyes slowly closed while his right hand clenched tightly onto his sword. At this moment he felt like he wasn't himself anymore. Strength. He felt like his body possessed boundless strength. He'd never felt so strong in his life. Of course, he knew that he'd obtained all of this at the cost of his life. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it and suddenly opened his eyes. In the next moment he transformed into a fiery red ray of light that shot into the sky. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Xian slashed Li Qiuheng back with a single strike of his sword, and the latter directly retreated 3 kilometers away. The eyes of the heavenly exalt in the sky instantly narrowed when he saw this scene. Yi Xian's strength was unusually strong. The other experts had extremely solemn expressions as well. Yi Xian's current strength wasn't inferior to a consolidation realm expert in the slightest. Even though Yi Xian had paid the price with his life, it was still too terrifying. In the sky, Li Qiuheng glanced at his chest. There was a sword mark there, and it was extremely deep to the point his bones could be seen. Li Qiuheng's expression was extremely unsightly. He'd never imagined that he'd actually been injured by Yi Xian twice in succession. An extraordinary humiliation. Li Qiuheng looked down at Yi Xian. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A sword howl shook the heavens and the earth as a ray of light shot into the sky from below and slashed straight at Li Qiuheng. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings instantly changed when they saw this attack. This attack was even stronger than the previous one. Each attack was stronger than the previous one. Li Qiuheng didn't dare act carelessly in the sky. He pressed his palms together, and then he flipped his palms outwards when the attack arrived in front of him before swiftly pressing them forward. Bang! A powerful force swept out like a volcanic eruption from his palms. As soon as this force appeared, the entire sky instantly became illusory. Bang! Yi Xian's attack had been forcefully blocked. However, Li Qiuheng's countenance instantly turned ghastly pale. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then he spun forward with his sword in hand. The sound of something tearing resounded. Li Qiuheng's pupils constricted, and then he swiftly moved his arms forward to block Yi Xian's attack. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian's sword descended, Li Qiuheng was instantly pushed over 10 kilometers back. At the same time, one of his arms had been slashed into pieces by Yi Xian. The heavenly exalt stared fixedly at Yi Xian from afar. At this moment she suddenly realized that she'd overlooked Yi Xian until now. Even though she felt that Yi Xian was an extraordinary genius, Yi Xian hadn't been able to pose any threat to her at all. But at this moment she suddenly realized that her thoughts were wrong. If Yi Xian were to mature, then he would be extraordinarily terrifying. The experts from Whirling World had extremely solemn expressions on their faces as well. Because Yi Xian's combat strength had far exceeded their expectations. It could be said that not to mention the fifth dimension, even if Yi Xian was in Whirling World he would definitely be the #1 expert in the younger generation. Yi Xian must die. At this moment, both the Dark Abyss and Whirling World had unanimously come to a common understanding. The best way to deal with a genius was to strangle him. At this moment, Yi Xian once again rushed towards Li Qiuheng from afar. Wherever the sword light passed, it tore through everything. In the distance, Li Qiuheng's pupils suddenly shrank as he hurriedly said, "Attack." At this moment he no longer dared to fight against Yi Xian by himself. As soon as his voice fell, two Consolidation Realm experts from the Xuanhuan sect suddenly appeared in front of him. But Yi Xian didn't choose to retreat. He slashed out with his sword. The two experts suddenly disappeared from where they stood. Rumble. Rumble. The sky trembled violently. Under the joint attack of the two Consolidation Realm powerhouses, Yi Xian was forced to retreat repeatedly. However, he did not retreat for long before he suddenly stopped and slashed forward. A blood-red sword light pierced through the air. Boom. This sword strike directly forced the two Consolidation Realm experts to retreat. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Heavenly Exalt and the others not far away became even more unsightly. Yi Xian's strength was constantly growing. Stronger and stronger. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared he was already in front of one of the Consolidation Realm experts. Just like before, he slashed down with his sword again. The Consolidation Realm expert didn't dare to be careless and was about to attack with all his might when a sudden change occurred. A black and white Tai Chi circle suddenly appeared above his head, and in an instant his realm was directly suppressed to the Dao Attainment realm. At the same time, Yi Xian's four domains directly enveloped the old man. This sudden turn of events caused the old man's expression to change drastically. He was just about to retreat, but it was too late. Yi Xian's sword fell. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian's sword slashed straight down from the old man's head. The sword slashed to the end and the old man's body was split into two. His soul was directly destroyed. The surroundings suddenly fell silent when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian had killed a Consolidation Realm expert. After all, Yi Xian was only at the Dao Attainment realm at this moment. Killing an enemy 2 levels above him? Not far away, the experts of the Whirling World looked at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a monster. At this moment, Hu Bugui, who was next to the Celestial Venerable, suddenly said, "This person is too monstrous. Kill him." The Celestial Venerable nodded. "Kill him." As soon as her voice fell, a dozen Consolidation Realm experts suddenly rushed out in unison, heading straight for Yi Xian. Seeing the dozen Consolidation Realm experts rushing over, Yi Xian turned his head and glanced. He saw Anlanxiu, Nian Yan, Zhang Wenxiu, Lian Wanli, Xiao Dao and Qian Mo. The only regret was that he didn't see Yi Ling. But it was good that Yi Ling wasn't here so he could live on. As long as he could live on, that was good. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. "Ling, I can't go find you. Don't blame me. You must live well." At this point he suddenly opened his eyes, looked at the Consolidation Realm experts rushing towards him and laughed. "Come on." As his voice fell he began to completely release all his power. Self-destruct. Not far away, Li Qiuheng said somewhat crazily, "Kill him. Kill him." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts behind him also rushed out one after another. And at this moment, a beast-like roar came from nowhere. "Who dares to touch him? Who dares? The starry sky trembled. P.S. Vote for me. Chapter 1431. Everyone was stunned when they heard this voice. Who is it? Yi Xian listened to it as well and he looked towards the depths of the starry sky. The voice was slightly familiar but he couldn't recall who it was. The Heavenly Venerable's eyes narrowed. "It's here. The force behind Yi Xian has finally appeared." Hu Bugui raised his head and frowned. "I don't sense her aura." The nearby Shao clan's Shao Pingxing said in a low voice. "The person hasn't arrived but his voice arrived first." Hu Bugui said softly, "Looks like it's not easy to deal with her." Shao Pingxing spoke indifferently, "It's good to increase the difficulty. Otherwise it would be too boring." Hu Bugui smiled, "Indeed." They were curious about the force behind Yi Xian, but they weren't afraid at all. What a joke. A few dozen Consolidation Realm experts were gathered here. Did they need to be afraid? Suddenly Li Qiuheng spoke fiercely, "No matter who she is, kill Yi Xian first." As soon as he finished speaking he charged towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian was an arrow at the end of its flight, and it was the best time to kill him. In next to no time, Li Qiuheng arrived in front of Yi Xian, and then he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. At this moment Yi Xian was powerless to resist because he'd overdrawn all his strength. He could only watch as the fist smashed towards him. Right at this moment, the executing heaven sword in his hand suddenly trembled violently, and numerous sword howls shook the heavens and the earth. At the same time, the space in front of Yi Xian was suddenly torn apart, and then a woman walked out from within it. The woman wore a white robe and had a wine gourd hanging from her waist. Along with the appearance of this woman, the gazes of everyone present descended onto her. Who is she? Yi Xian grinned when he saw her. Qing, she was Qinger as well. But she wasn't a woman in a plain dress. Meanwhile, Li Qiuheng had arrived behind her. Li Qiuheng stared at the woman who had just appeared and said fiercely, "You can go and die too." As soon as he finished speaking, his left hand suddenly blasted a punch towards the woman. However, in the next moment he was stunned. It wasn't just Li Qiuheng who was stunned, everyone else was stunned as well. Because a hand that was pure white like jade had suddenly grabbed onto Li Qiuheng's throat. This hand belonged to the white-robed woman. No one saw how the white-robed woman attacked. Even Li Qiuheng was dumbfounded at this moment. How did he get caught? The white-robed woman looked at Li Qiuheng. She lifted Li Qiuheng up like a little chick, her eyes bloodshot. "What kind of trash are you?" At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was stunned. At this moment, the expressions of the powerhouses from the whirling world turned solemn. A consolidation realm expert was actually powerless in front of this woman? The one who felt the most despair was still Li Qiuheng. He wanted to resist, but at this moment all his strength seemed to have disappeared. He couldn't resist at all. At this moment, the white-robed woman exerted some force with her right hand. Ka-cha! A clear and melodious sound of bones breaking resounded in the field. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, she directly plucked off Li Qiuheng's head. In the next moment she held Li Qiuheng's head and threw it to the right. Boom. In the distance, a consolidation realm powerhouse was directly smashed by the head before he could react. Instant kill. Instantly killing two consolidation realm powerhouses. At this moment, the expressions of the Sky Sovereign and the others finally changed. At this moment they seemed to realize the seriousness of the matter. Killing a consolidation realm powerhouse was like killing a chicken. The white-robed woman didn't attack again. Instead she turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian grinned. "I'm going to die." At this moment he felt extremely weak. Especially his soul, it was terrifyingly weak. The power of his bloodline was fine because he realized that although he had burned the power of his bloodline, it was useless. Even he couldn't extinguish his own blood. He had to admit that this made him feel a little ridiculous. If he couldn't do anything to his own blood, what the hell was this? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian and tears suddenly flowed from her eyes. "With me here, how can you die?" As she spoke, she gently placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder. In the next moment, a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian. At the same time, with a wave of her right hand, the soul-suppressing sword appeared in her hand. She glanced at the soul-suppressing sword, then suddenly stabbed it into Yi Xian's chest. Boom! Suppressing the soul with the sword. Yi Xian's soul, which was about to dissipate, was forcibly suppressed by her power and the soul-suppressing sword. The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. "You need to nourish yourself." After saying that, she turned to look at the Sky Sovereign and the others and said fiercely, "My brother's soul is weak. Why don't you all die?" As soon as her voice fell, she suddenly punched out. 100 feet away, a consolidation realm powerhouse died on the spot. Seeing this scene, everyone present was petrified. At this moment, the seriousness in the eyes of the Sky Sovereign and the others had turned into fear. With just one punch, the consolidation realm powerhouse died instantly. That was a consolidation realm powerhouse. The strongest powerhouse in the world. Not only the Sky Sovereign and the others, but Suzhou and the others who were hiding in the dark were also stunned. Suzhou gulped. He looked at Yi Xian below and said with a trembling voice, "This young master, yes sister. What kind of deities are they?" On the other side, the Lord and the others were silent. Especially Luo Ho and Aku Wang. At this moment both of them were sweating profusely. Back then they had wanted to kill Yi Xian and obtain the Tao scripture. If they really killed Yi Xian, the two of them did not dare to think about the consequences. Yan Yaoyao looked at the weak Yi Xian in the distance and said softly, "We still underestimated him." It was not just her. Everyone had underestimated the people behind Yi Xian. In the distance, after the white-robed woman killed the Consolidation Realm powerhouse with a punch, she waved her right hand and the Consolidation Realm powerhouse's soul was directly caught in her hand. Then she turned around and placed the soul in front of Zhou Xian. Absorb. Zhou Xian. At this moment the Sky Sovereign suddenly said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, what happened between us and young Master Yi was a misunderstanding." The white-robed woman suddenly turned around and in the next moment, she suddenly appeared in front of the Sky Sovereign. The Sky Sovereign's pupils suddenly shrank. Before he could react, the white-robed woman punched him in the face. Boom! The Sky Sovereign's head exploded like a watermelon. The white-robed woman grabbed the Sky Sovereign's soul, her face expressionless. This is also a misunderstanding. The Sky Sovereign's soul stared at the white-robed woman. Who the hell are you? The white-robed woman did not answer the Sky Sovereign. She sent the Sky Sovereign's soul in front of Zhou Xian. Absorb. Zhou Xian. The Sky Sovereign suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Ridiculous. I'm really ridiculous. All this time her goal had been to deal with the people behind Zhou Xian, but at this moment she realized how ridiculous her idea was. The person in front of her was definitely far beyond the Consolidation Realm, and had even reached a realm that even she did not know. The reason why the people behind Zhou Xian were not in this universe was because they were too strong and this world was too weak. They did not want to play in this world. This was great. She and the others had joined forces to force them back. What was courting death? She was courting death. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the horizon. Your Excellency, do you really have to be so ruthless? Hearing this, the Sky Sovereign suddenly looked up. There were two old men standing in the sky. One wore a white robe and the other wore a black robe. The Dark Abyssine Yang God. Seeing these two, the Sky Sovereign, who had originally given up resisting, suddenly opened her eyes. At this moment she saw hope. Yin Yang God. These two had reached the peak of the Consolidation Realm tens of thousands of years ago. As for now, their strength was unfathomable and even she did not know how strong they were. At this moment the white-robed woman looked up at the Yin Yang God, and among them the white-robed old man looked at the white-robed woman. Don't go too far. The white-robed woman's lips curled into a mocking smile. Go too far. I'll show you what it means to go too far. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the sky, the Yin Yang God's expressions changed drastically, and the white-robed old man who led them directly smashed his fist down. This fist smashed down, and the entire starry sky trembled as if it was about to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment the white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, the white-robed old man's power suddenly disappeared, and at the same time, the white-robed old man was directly sent flying tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, his physical body directly exploded and only his soul remained. At the same time the white-robed woman punched out again, but this time her target was the black-robed old man on the other side. The black-robed old man didn't even have the chance to react before his body exploded into pieces. It was an instant kill. Everyone here was petrified when they witnessed this scene. As for the Heavenly Exalt, he felt despair. He truly felt despair. The Yin Yang God actually didn't even have the ability to fight back before her. How strong is she? The white-robed woman directly brought the Yin Yang God's souls over to Zhou Xian, and then she gazed at Zhou Xian and spoke gently, quickly absorb them. Replenish them. Zhou Xian was speechless. When she saw Zhou Xian stunned, the white-robed woman spoke gently, don't just stand there. Quickly absorb them. The expressions of everyone here became extremely strange when they witnessed this scene. This woman was as bad-tempered as a volcano in front of others, but she was as gentle as water in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he gazed at the Heavenly Exalt's soul. The Heavenly Exalt stared fixedly at Zhou Xian with slight resentment. Zhou Xian, why didn't you tell me earlier that the person behind you is so heaven-defying? Zhou Xian gazed at the Heavenly Exalt and said, would you believe me if I told you that I'm the son of the ninth dimension? The Heavenly Exalt turned to gaze at the white-robed woman, but she remained expressionless. What's the point of being the son of the ninth dimension? Big brother, if you want, then I can destroy the ninth dimension and make you the master of it. Zhou Xian was speechless. The Heavenly Exalt was speechless. Suddenly, a formidable aura suddenly assaulted them from afar, and it was so strong that it caused the entire starry sky to tremble. Everyone here raised their heads and looked towards the depths of the starry sky when they witnessed this scene. The white-robed woman's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a rare trace of seriousness in them. Meanwhile, the heavenly exalt suddenly gazed towards the depths of the starry sky and spoke in a trembling voice. It's definitely an expert of my dark abyss. Could it be the Abyss Master? The Abyss Master? Hope arose in the eyes of the Yin and Yang gods when they heard the heavenly exalt. The Abyss Master. That was a true powerhouse above the Consolidation realm. Moreover, that was an expert that had surpassed the Consolidation realm over 100,000 years ago. On the other side, the experts of the peaceful whirling world were quite excited as well. A top-rate expert of the Dark Abyss has arrived. There's hope. Didn't they notice that the invincible white-robed woman's expression had become slightly solemn? The aura in the starry sky was growing stronger and stronger, and it was so strong that it wasn't inferior to the white-robed woman at all. Right at this moment, the starry sky was suddenly torn apart, and then a woman walked out from within it. She held a sword in her hand. After she walked out, she glanced at the crowd below and said, "Who bullied the members of the Yang clan?" Everyone was speechless. Chapter 1432. Who's bullying the members of the Yang clan? Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they heard this. Zhou Xian was stunned as well. Who's here? On the other hand, the heavenly exalt and the others were stunned as well. Because there were quite a few people here and it was the Master of the Dark Abyss. After all, the Master of the Dark Abyss was a man. Suddenly, the heavenly exalt's pupils constricted. You're Situ Tingyan. The expressions of the Yin and Yang gods changed drastically when they heard the heavenly exalt. This name was simply like a nightmare to Anne's abyss. It was exactly that woman who'd fought her way into Anne's abyss all those years ago, and she'd practically destroyed it. If she hadn't suddenly left, then Anne's abyss would have been gone by now. She's here. The heavenly exalt felt utter despair. She'd vanished for countless years, yet she'd returned to this universe for Zhou Xian's sake. At this moment she suddenly realized how naive her intentions to annihilate the people standing behind Zhou Xian were. Any random person standing behind Zhou Xian wasn't someone they could deal with. On the other side, the experts from the whirling world were dumbfounded. That woman isn't from Anne's abyss but from Zhou Xian's side? We're finished. At this moment, the experts from whirling world felt despair as well. Just the white-robed woman was enough to make them feel despair. Now, a swordsman who wasn't inferior to the white-robed woman had joined the fray. Situ Tingyun's gaze suddenly descended onto Zhou Xian. It's you. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Are you Senior Situ Tingyun?" Situ Tingyun smiled. "You should call me Senior Sister." Senior Sister. Zhou Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun walked over to Zhou Xian, sized up Zhou Xian and then shook her head. "He's on the weak side." Zhou Xian broke out in a cold sweat. Situ Tingyun suddenly gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman had a calm expression on her face. Situ Tingyun smiled. "I've heard of you." The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun. "He's indeed the person with the greatest natural talent in the sword Dao after him. No, your talent in the sword Dao is above his." Tingyun. Actually, the white-robed woman was not exaggerating. After all, Situ Tingyun had relied on the green-clothed man's 3 strands of sword intent to attain her current accomplishments. It could be said that besides the green-clothed man, Situ Tingyun's accomplishments in the sword sect were the highest. Situ Tingyun smiled and said, "Shall we get down to business first?" White Robe nodded and looked at Zhou Xian. "Absorb it quickly." Zhou Xian did not hesitate. He absorbed the souls of the celestial venerate and the yin-yang gods. After absorbing the souls of the 3, his soul recovered at a ridiculous rate. While Zhou Xian was digesting those formidable souls, the white-robed woman suddenly turned around to gaze at the members of the whirling world. Meanwhile, an old man walked forward. The old man bowed slightly to the white-robed woman. "I am Xiao Pingxing from the Xiao clan." "Greetings, senior." The white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom. Xiao Pingxing died instantly. His soul was annihilated. Everyone was speechless. At this moment, the remaining experts of the whirling world were shocked to the extreme. It was an instant kill. It wouldn't be so terrifying if it was just a victory. But it was an instant kill. A peak consolidation realm expert didn't even have the ability to fight back. At this moment, Hu Bugue from the Dao returning courtyard suddenly said. Bugue suddenly said, "Retreat." With that he turned around and fled. They could only flee. They had no chance against the white-robed god of death. The white-robed woman glanced at Hubugue. Did I allow you to flee? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly punched out. Boom. In the distance, Hubugue's expression changed drastically. He suddenly turned around and punched out. He knew he couldn't beat her, but he had to fight. If he didn't fight, he would definitely die. If he fought, he might have a chance to live. Boom. As soon as Hubugue punched out, a powerful force swept out from his fist like a tide. However, in the next moment, this powerful force vanished without a trace. At the same time, his entire body was forcefully wiped out by a powerful force. It was directly wiped out. The white-robed woman didn't stop. She suddenly pointed with her finger and the executing heaven sword flew out. The next moment, a ray of sword light pierced through the air and traveled tens of thousands of miles. The sword traveled tens of thousands of miles. In the sky, bloody heads kept falling. Seeing this scene, Zhou Xian and the others who were hiding in the dark looked extremely fearful. One should know that the whirling sect in the Dark Abyss had dozens of Consolidation Realm experts and more than 100 Daoist Realm experts. However, these people were like vegetables being chopped up. They didn't even have the ability to fight back. That sword directly killed dozens of Daoist Realm and Consolidation Realm experts. This strength. Zhou Xian wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He once again looked at Yi Xian, who was still absorbing souls not far away. This young Master Ye's sister. I don't know how many sisters he has. It's too scary. On the other side, the Lord and the others were silent. They had to admit that they had been dealt a heavy blow. What was a strong expert? This was a strong expert. As for themselves, they were as weak as chickens in front of such a strong expert. On the other side, Xianxia was also watching this scene. In front of her stood a woman. It was Yuzun, who had come into contact with Yi Xian before. At this moment, Yuzun's expression was extremely grave. Before she came, she had specially investigated Yi Xian. Of course, she mainly wanted to investigate the white-robed woman. However, she didn't expect that the white-robed woman would appear instead of the white-robed woman. She also didn't expect that the white-robed woman would be so powerful. She definitely far surpassed Consolidation Realm experts. This time, the Dark Abyss and the Whirling World had kicked an iron plate. Behind Yuzun, the great elder of the Whirling sect suddenly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Fortunately, we listened to Xianchu and didn't join forces with the Dark Abyss and the others. At this moment, he was indeed afraid. If they had joined forces with the Dark Abyss and the other forces, it would have brought disaster to the Whirling sect. Although the Whirling sect had a deep foundation, they couldn't withstand the revenge of such a strong expert. Moreover, most importantly, there was more than one such expert. Who knew how many more there were? Xianchu looked at Yi Xian in the distance and didn't say anything. In the distance, after the white-robed woman had killed those strong ones, she collected all of their souls and then sent them to Yi Xian. Yi Xian's soul could be said to be extremely weak. The best way to nourish a soul was to use it to nourish it. At this moment, the souls of these experts were simply great nourishment for the current Yi Xian. After Yi Xian devoured the souls of the Sky Sovereign and the Yin-Yang gods, his soul aura suddenly skyrocketed. The white-robed woman suddenly turned to look at Zhou Xian, who was not far away. Seeing this, Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "Greetings, Senior. We are young Master Ye's friends." The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian and Yi Xian nodded. "Senior Zhou Xian and the others have helped me a lot." The white-robed woman nodded slightly and looked at Zhou Xian. "Thank you." Hearing this, Zhou Xian trembled. He was slightly flattered by this senior's thanks. But fortunately, this senior seemed to be reasonable. As for the white-robed woman, she was really a little unreasonable. The white-robed woman looked at Yuzun and the others. Seeing this, the great elder hurriedly said, "Sir, we are also good friends with young Master Yi." The white-robed woman retracted her gaze and looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was madly absorbing the souls of those experts. It was really great nourishment, especially since he had the soul-suppressing sword. There wasn't much difference between him and the soul-suppressing sword. The white-robed woman just looked at Yi Xian, her eyes filled with gentleness. Actually, she didn't care about anything back then because there was nothing left for her to care about. During the battle between the white-robed woman and the green-robed man, she didn't choose to help the green-robed man not because she was afraid of the white-robed woman, but because she actually hoped that the white-robed woman could defy the heavens and change her fate. Among the four of them, the one they owed the most was her brother. No matter if it was her or the white-robed woman, they would never be able to forget that little boy that had starved to death in the cave. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He didn't continue absorbing those souls because his soul had returned to normal, and it was better for the soul-suppressing sword to absorb the remaining souls. Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. Qing. The white-robed woman nodded. She walked over to Yi Xian, and then she took Yi Xian's hand and said softly, "I'm sorry I'm late." Yi Xian laughed bitterly. "I thought I was dead for sure." The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. "You won't die with me here." Yi Xian said softly, "Qing'er, you and Qing'er. Both of you are so strong. Do you know where she is now?" The white-robed woman raised her head and looked towards the depths of the starry sky. After a short moment she shook her head. "She's very, very far away from us." Yi Xian asked, "Is it because of my misfortune seed?" The white-robed woman nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian furrowed his brows. "What is it?" The white-robed woman fell silent for a moment. "It's a very complicated thing. I don't know if this misfortune seed was forced upon you by others, or if it was your own doing. I've been investigating this matter and I've just made some progress. Then someone informed me that you're in danger." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Who informed you?" The white-robed woman fell silent. Yi Xian was about to ask more questions, but the white-robed woman shook her head. "One day you'll understand everything." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment then nodded. "All right. I won't ask any more." The white-robed woman turned to look at Zhou Xian. "Where is the dark abyss?" Hearing this, Zhou Xian was stunned for a moment, then he was overjoyed. Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "Senior, I'm willing to lead the way." The white-robed woman nodded. "Lead the way." As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian. "Let's go settle the score." Yi Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun suddenly asked, "Do you need my help?" The white-robed woman pulled Yi Xian's hand and walked away without looking back. "Do you think it's necessary?" P.S. One of our readers has a son today. Congratulations. I'll be giving everyone a red packet today. Remember to collect it. Unknowingly, many of our readers have already started their own families. I suddenly realized that we're all getting older. Chapter 1433. Along with the departure of Yi Xian and the white-robed woman, the fifth dimension suddenly fell silent. "Venerable Yu said softly, a calamity has descended upon Dark Abyss." Xian Chu said softly, "I'm afraid it isn't just Dark Abyss." The corners of Venerable Yu's mouth curled up. "Yes. However, it's great news for us." The Grand Elder suddenly said, "Venerable Yu, if Yi Xian wants the last scripture of our swaying sect, then we—" Venerable Yu glanced at the Grand Elder. "Wait for him? Shouldn't we be the ones to give it to him?" The Grand Elder was speechless. On the other side, the Lord suddenly smiled. "What do you think?" Behind him, Rahu and the others were silent. "What do they think?" "That woman is already invincible." "How do they think?" Qi Yaoyao suddenly smiled. "Shouldn't we rejoice?" The Lord smiled. "Indeed." As he spoke, he looked towards the distance and said softly, "I finally know why Ancestor Doubting chose him. With such an expert behind him, wouldn't it be extremely easy for him to rebuild order?" Rahu suddenly said, "Can Dark Abyss stop that senior?" The Lord replied softly, "I don't think so. However, Ancestor Dark Abyss isn't a simple figure. How could someone who could create the Dark Abyss be ordinary? Moreover, the Dark Abyss has existed for so long, and its foundation is far beyond our imagination." Qi Yaoyao smiled. "That's not something we should worry about." The Lord grinned. "Indeed." As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly looked towards Situ Tingyun. "We almost forgot about this senior." A woman walked over to Situ Tingyun. It was Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu smiled and said, "Tingyun." Situ Tingyun grinned. "Senior Sister Lu." Senior Sister Lu hesitated for a moment before she said, "Do you know anything about him?" Situ Tingyun shook her head. "I don't." Senior Sister Lu fell silent. Situ Tingyun suddenly turned to look at Nian Nian. Nian Nian hurriedly lowered her head when she saw Situ Tingyun looking over. Situ Tingyun walked over to Nian Nian and smiled. "What's your name?" Nian Nian said softly, "Nian Nian." Situ Tingyun turned around to gaze at Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu hesitated for a moment before she said, "She's a fifth dimension Tendo." Tendo. Sidu Tingyun smiled. Interesting. There's actually such an expert in this universe. Senior sister Lu looked at Situ Tingyun. Tingyun, can you help her recover her memories? Sidu Tingyun shook her head. Senior sister Lu frowned slightly. Not either. Situ Tingyun smiled and said, she might have intentionally lost her memories. I believe that she will recover her memories when it's necessary. Was it intentional? Senior sister Lu looked at Nian Nian in silence. Soon her expression became complicated. What kind of person was the fifth dimension Tendo? That was a person whose strength and intelligence were close to that of a demon. How could such a person lose his memory? Could she be plotting something again? At that moment, Situ Tingyun suddenly turned her head. A powerful aura was rapidly approaching the fifth dimension's starry space from the whirling world to the fifth dimension. Another expert from the whirling world had arrived. Everyone was looking at the teleportation formation. It didn't take long for an old man to walk out from within it. He glanced at the surroundings and spoke in a low voice. Where are they? No one answered him. The old man suddenly gazed at Yuzun's group. Yuzun, where are they? Yuzun smiled. So it's the supreme elder of the Blackout sect. The old man gazed at Yuzun. What exactly happened here? Yuzun hesitated for a moment before he said, I want to tell you what happened as well, but I think that you might not believe me. The old man stared fixedly at Yuzun. Something has happened to them. Yuzun nodded, yes. The old man's face turned gloomy. Impossible. He seemed to have thought of something and he glanced coldly at the surroundings. In the end, his gaze descended onto Situ Tingyun. Who is it? Situ Tingyun smiled. I can be considered to be Yi Xian's senior sister. Yi Xian. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly while he slowly clenched his right fist, but he didn't dare attack. Because the woman before him gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. In his opinion, this was extremely absurd because he'd already attained the peak of the consolidation realm, and there weren't many in this world that could pose a threat to him. But at this moment he really did sense danger. The old man thought for a moment before he relaxed his right hand. He felt that it was better to be cautious and keep a low profile. He looked at Situ Tingyun. Where are the members of my Blackout sect? Situ Tingyun smiled. They're dead. The old man's expression instantly turned cold. They're dead? My Blackout sect has 8 Consolidation Realm experts and a few dozen at the Dao Attainment Realm. You're saying that they're dead? Situ Tingyun nodded. They're indeed dead. The old man laughed from extreme rage. Dead? Don't tell me that they were killed. Situ Tingyun shook her head. That's not it. The old man pointed angrily at Situ Tingyun. What a huge joke. 8 Consolidation Realm experts and a few dozen Consolidation Realm experts in total, yet you're saying that they were killed. Situ Tingyun suddenly interrupted the old man. Is the Consolidation Realm very strong? The old man was stunned. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment before she said, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel that it's enough to kill a Consolidation Realm expert with hands, right? Everyone. On the other side, Yuzun's expression was very unnatural. The High Lord shook his head and smiled bitterly. That's too much of a blow. In front of Situ Tingyun, the old man suddenly pointed at himself and smiled. I'm a Consolidation Realm expert. You have hands and 2 hands at that. Why don't you try killing me? Situ Tingyun blinked. That's what I said. The old man smiled. That's what I said. At this point, the old man's pupils suddenly constricted because he saw a sword, a very, very ordinary sword. The sword was slightly blurry at first, but it quickly became clear. However, when he saw the sword clearly, it had already pierced his throat. A sword pierced through his throat. The old man looked at Situ Tingyun in disbelief. This? Situ Tingyun shrugged. I was the one who killed him. The old man was at a loss. Why can't I even take a single sword strike? Situ Tingyun blinked. You might be a little weak. The old man suddenly roared. I'm at the peak of the Consolidation Realm. I'm at the peak of the Consolidation Realm. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment before she said, I was wrong. It's not that you're weak, but that you're very weak at the Consolidation Realm. The old man. On the other side, Lord Yu shook his head. This woman's words are so infuriating. I can't take it anymore. With that she turned around and left. Xian Chu. The High Lord shook his head and smiled bitterly. This senior is speaking. Farewell, farewell. With that he turned around and left. Luo Ho and the others. In the distance, the old man in front of Situ Tingyun was at a loss. At the instant Situ Tingyun attacked, he knew that he'd encountered a true expert. She was too strong and he was too weak. In some places, Consolidation Realm experts were at the top of the pyramid, but in other places, they were like cabbages. Different environments had different values. At this moment, Situ Tingyun suddenly looked at Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu, let's catch up. Senior Sister Lu nodded. All right. The two women left. The starry sky returned to peace once more. Somewhere in the starry sky, Xian was flying on his sword and the white-robed woman was by his side. Suja wasn't too far away from them. At this moment Suja was extremely excited. How many years had the ancient God Abyss and the Dark Abyss been fighting for? Countless years. However, both sides hadn't come to a conclusion. But now the situation was about to change. Xian suddenly looked at the white-robed woman. Qing, do you know the origin of my bloodline? The white-robed woman nodded. I do. Xian hurriedly asked, who am I? The white-robed woman hesitated for a moment and then she said, I know who your father is but I don't know your mother. However, I do know that your mother isn't ordinary. Zhou Xian. Xian spoke in a low voice. My mother is Zhou Xian, but she said she was going to look for someone and we haven't heard from her since. The white-robed woman said, she's very complicated and I don't know the specifics. However, I do know that she isn't an ordinary person. Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, don't think too much about it. What you have to do is live well. Xian spoke softly, I want to become as strong as you. The white-robed woman said, time. As she spoke, she gazed at Xian. That Qing'er I know has lived for over 200,000 years. If she lived for that long, she would be as strong as you. Over 200,000 years. Xian was slightly curious. Qing, are you originally from the three-dimensional universe? The white-robed woman nodded. Yes. Xian was slightly puzzled. Why are all the people from the three-dimensional universe so terrifying? The white-robed woman fell silent for a moment, then said, in the entire three-dimensional universe, there are only a few special ones. Xian asked again, Qing, you've been to very far places, do you know how big this universe is? The white-robed woman shook her head, there's no end. Xian asked, infinite. The white-robed woman nodded, something like that. As she said this, she seemed to have thought of something and said, there's a place that we have to be careful of. Xian asked, what place? The white-robed woman was about to speak when Suja suddenly said, Senior, we've arrived. We've arrived. Xian looked up and saw a huge abyss not far away. That abyss was like a pitch-black black hole in the starry sky, deep and mysterious. The dark abyss. Suja said solemnly, Senior, this is the dark abyss. There's a powerful enchantment around it. At this moment, the white-robed woman threw a punch. Boom. The huge abyss trembled violently. Immediately after, the boundary around the abyss vanished into thin air. The white-robed woman looked at the abyss, her face expressionless. Are you going to commit suicide or should I kill you? Suja was speechless. Chapter 1434. Domineering. Too domineering. Suja looked at the white-robed woman. Why was Xian's sister so domineering? Right at this moment, the enormous abyss suddenly trembled. In the next moment an old man walked out from within it. Suja quickly said, Senior, this is an elder of an Yuan. His strength is at the peak of the consolidation realm. The white-robed woman nodded. You don't need to introduce me to someone who is about to die. Suja was speechless. In the distance the old man bowed slightly to the white-robed woman. Senior, I in Yuan was in the wrong this time. I in Yuan am willing to return the two scriptures and apologize to young Master Yi. He admitted defeat. Obviously, In Yuan already knew about what happened in the fifth dimension. The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. Apologize. As she said that, she punched out. Boom. Before the old man could react, he was directly smashed into pieces by the white-robed woman's punch. The white-robed woman said, Brother, apologize to him. Xian was speechless. Suja had a strange expression on his face. At this time another old man came out from the abyss. This old man held a black cane in his hand and looked at the white-robed woman. Your Excellency, do you really want to be so ruthless? The white-robed woman was expressionless. When you went against my brother, did you think of holding back? The old man said in a low voice, Your Excellency, we already know our mistakes. The white-robed woman's expression became ferocious. Mistakes? Since you know your mistakes, why don't you die? Suja blinked and sweated. The senior is too scary. In the distance, the old man stared at the white-robed woman. Your Excellency, I and Yuan am not easy to bully. The white-robed woman laughed. I will bully you right now. As she said that, she punched out. Boom. The huge abyss in the distance began to shatter. Seeing this scene, the old man's expression changed. The white-robed woman wanted to destroy the entire dark abyss. The old man quickly said, Sacrificial array. As soon as he finished speaking, the dark abyss suddenly trembled violently, and then numerous black blades flew out from within it. Moreover, figures could be seen within these blades. Xian's expression turned solemn when he saw this. These giant blades contained extremely powerful energy that could easily tear space apart. At this time, the white-robed woman punched out. Boom. Those huge blades were instantly transformed into nothingness. At the same time, the entire dark abyss started to shatter. In next to no time, numerous shrill cries resounded from within the dark abyss, and then countless people fled from within it. The old man's countenance instantly turned pale when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, he was truly on the verge of despair. What kind of person was he? Why was he so ridiculously powerful? The white-robed woman was about to attack again, but at this moment, a middle-aged man who was wearing a white robe suddenly appeared. The man suddenly appeared in front of the white-robed woman. Suja's expression instantly became solemn when he saw this person, and he hurriedly said, Senior, this person is the current master of the Dark Abyss, and his name is Mo Yuan. Mo Yuan looked at the white-robed woman. Are you from Xian City? The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. Without answering, she directly punched out. In the distance, Mo Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. In the next moment, he suddenly rushed forward and also punched out. The moment he punched out, the space around him directly distorted into a strange shape. At the same time, the surrounding starry sky even cracked inch by inch. Compared to the white-robed woman's simple punch, the momentum of Mo Yuan's punch could be said to be earth-shattering. But soon, the power of Mo Yuan's punch began to dissipate inch by inch, like snow meeting boiling oil. Seeing this scene, Mo Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. How is this possible? As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body disappeared without a trace. Killed with a single punch. In the distance, Suja's expression became extremely solemn. At this moment, his heart was in turmoil and he was extremely shocked. He knew that he had seriously underestimated the strength of this senior. That was Mo Yuan. The current master of the Dark Abyss had been killed by a punch from the white-robed woman. Xian was also a little shocked. Just how strong was this Qing? The white-robed woman didn't stop. She looked at the shattered Dark Abyss and blasted out another punch. A fist seal swept out. If this punch entered the Dark Abyss, the entire Dark Abyss would be turned into nothingness in an instant. One punch to destroy a world. However, just as the punch was about to enter the Dark Abyss, a finger seal suddenly flashed out from the Dark Abyss. Boom. The white-robed woman's fist seal was directly blocked, but in the next moment the finger seal directly shattered. The fist seal went straight into the Dark Abyss, but there was no movement. Not far away, Suja's expression became solemn. He knew that the true expert of the Dark Abyss had appeared. Could it be the second elder of the Dark Abyss? The white-robed woman looked at the Dark Abyss with a calm expression. At this moment, an old man walked out of the Dark Abyss. The old man's back was a little heavy and his hair was white. He looked particularly weak. Suja frowned because he didn't know the old man at all. The hunchbacked old man gazed at the white-robed woman, and a trace of a complicated expression flashed through his eyes. I never expected that the Dark Abyss would suffer such a calamity today. The white-robed woman clenched her right fist slowly. Meanwhile, the hunchbacked old man suddenly said, Senior, I and Yuan am willing to submit to young Master Yi. I wonder if Senior can spare my life? The white-robed woman turned to look at Xian. Meanwhile, the hunchbacked old man hurriedly added, Young Master Yi, if you're willing to show mercy, I and Yuan will follow young Master Yi forever. Xian smiled. I don't need it. The hunchbacked old man was stunned. Suja was stunned as well. He'd thought that Xian would agree. After all, the entire dark abyss submitting to him was extremely tempting. After all, Yi Xian had subdued the doubting as well. And the dark abyss was even more powerful than the doubting. The hunchbacked old man looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this old man doesn't understand. As far as I know, didn't you give the doubting a chance? Why can't you give it to me? Yi Xian shook his head. When the doubting ancestor made me the doubting master, the doubting was stronger than me, Yi Xian. The doubting ancestor's strength was enough to crush me. But now you chose to submit not because you want to submit but because you want to live. The difference is huge. The hunchbacked old man was stunned, and just as he was about to speak, the white-robed woman suddenly said angrily, "My brother said there's no need. You don't understand, do you?" As soon as she finished speaking, she punched out. Boom. Before the hunchbacked old man could finish his words, his entire body turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared without a trace. He was directly erased. It was obvious that the white-robed woman had used a bit of strength in that punch. After killing the hunchbacked old man with a single punch, the white-robed woman looked at the shattered dark abyss, and in the next moment she punched out. A fist swept through the battlefield and the space in its path was annihilated inch by inch. It was an extremely shocking sight. If this fist entered the dark abyss, the entire dark abyss would be instantly turned into nothingness. Just as the fist was about to enter the dark abyss, a shadow suddenly appeared at the entrance of the dark abyss, and the shadow flicked his sleeve. Boom. The white-robed woman's fist was instantly blocked by a mysterious force. Zhou Xian's voice trembled as he spoke from afar. "Dao brother." The shadow before them was the ancestor of the dark abyss, Dao brother. However, it wasn't his true body, it was just a shadow. Dao brother. He was one of the disciples of the previous owner of the Dao scripture. Moreover, he had created the dark abyss. Dao brother looked at the white-robed woman in the distance, and he just looked at her without saying a word. After that, his body started to dissipate bit by bit. Zhou Xian frowned slightly when he saw this. What does this mean? Just like that, the Dao brothers slowly disappeared in front of the three of them. Yi Xian was silent. What did she mean by this? At this moment, the white-robed woman waved her right hand, and two rays of white light suddenly flew out from the dark abyss and landed steadily in her hands. Dao scripture. 2 Dao scriptures. Yi Xian was about to speak, but the white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom. In the distance, the entire dark abyss was directly turned into nothingness. Completely wiped out. Seeing this scene, Zhou Xian's heart was filled with mixed feelings. The dark abyss and the ancient god abyss had been fighting for so many years, but now this force had completely disappeared. At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly said, "Let's go." Zhou Xian hurriedly asked, "Back to the 5th dimension?" The white-robed woman nodded. Zhou Xian was about to speak, but the white-robed woman said again, "Then go to the whirling world." Go to the whirling world. Zhou Xian was stunned. This senior still didn't want to give up? At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly said, "Let's go." As she said this, she pulled Yi Xian and turned to leave. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment, then followed. Whirling world. Somewhere in the clouds suddenly trembled. Soon, 4 experts appeared above the clouds. These 4 people were the Xuanhuan sect master Li Xianxia, the Xuanji sect master Gu Wuchao, the Dao Returning Academy's sect master Yun Min, and the Shao clan's patriarch Shao Jing. Xuanhuan sect master Li Xianxia suddenly said, "I think everyone should know that something has happened to the 5th dimension." Gu Wuchao said in a deep voice, "I can no longer contact the people of my Xuanji sect." Dao Returning Academy's sect master Yun Min said softly, "Me too." Shao Jing also said, "My Shao clan too." Xuanhuan sect master Li Xianxia suddenly said, "They might all be dead." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present changed. Li Xianxia said softly, "Everyone, this time we might have kicked an iron plate." Shao Jing looked at Li Xianxia. "No one should be able to destroy them over there." Li Xianxia said in a deep voice, "We might have underestimated the force behind that Yi Xian." Everyone fell silent. The force behind Yi Xian. Why had they sent so many experts to the 5th dimension this time? They wanted to destroy the force behind Yi Xian, seize the Dao scripture and divide the 5th dimension. But now all the people they had sent were gone. Li Xianxia suddenly said, "Everyone, the people behind Yi Xian will definitely not let this go." Shao Jing said in a deep voice, "In Brother Li's opinion, what should we do next?" A cold light flashed in Li Xianshui's eyes. We can't sit still and wait for death. We must strike first to gain the upper hand. As he said this, he looked at everyone. Everyone, this time we must work together and unite as one. I have already asked all the experts of my Xian Fei sect to rush back. Not only that, I have also invited some of the elders who are in seclusion. All the experts of my Xian Fei sect have rushed to the transmission array here. Everyone, I hope that you can do the same. Don't think that you will get lucky. The other party was able to destroy so many of us, so they must have a lot of people. None of our 4 clans can contend against them. Only when the 4 clans unite as one will we have a chance. After the other 3 were silent for a moment, Xiao Jing suddenly said, I will immediately ask all the experts of my Xiao clan to rush here. Dao Returning Academy Master Yunmin also said, the people of my Dao Returning Academy will arrive here in an hour at most. Xuanji Sect Master Gu Wuchao said, within an hour, all the experts of my Xuanji Sect who are at or above the Dao attainment realm will appear here. Soon, countless experts of the entire whirling world rushed towards the transmission array that led to the 5th dimension. More and more people came because there were many vassal forces under the 4 super forces. P.S. Thank you for the support of all the readers. The monthly votes have increased a lot, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't think about health care anymore. Work hard to earn milk powder money. I want to be a righteous person. Chapter 1435. Under the call of the 4 major forces, more and more forces from the Saha world began to join them. However, the Whirling sect, which had the greatest influence in the Whirling world, did not make any moves. Whirling sect. In a certain pavilion, 2 women sat facing each other. One of the women was Yuzun, who had rushed back from the 5th dimension. The other woman was the current sect master of the Whirling sect, Yushi. The 2 of them were playing chess. Yushi raised a piece and placed it down. Is what you said true? Venerable Yu laughed. Senior sister, do you think I would lie to you? Yushi shook her head, her eyes flashed a trace of complexity. I just can't believe that there is such a strong person in this world. Venerable Yu said in a low voice. I didn't believe it in the beginning either. Yushi shook his head and smiled. It seems that our vision is too narrow. In other words, the whirling world has limited us. Yuzun raised a chess piece and placed it down. Then he said, Senior sister, have you considered it? Yushi chuckled and said, what's there to consider? Exchanging a Daoist scripture for a good karma, no matter how you look at it, it's our gain. Venerable Yu smiled and said, indeed. Yushi turned his head and took a look. Now more and more experts from the whirling world are rushing to that teleportation array. It seems that Xianhuan sect wants to fight to the death. Venerable Yu shook his head. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. In her opinion, numbers meant nothing to a powerhouse at the level of the white-robed woman. Most importantly, there was also a female swordsman. That female swordsman was also terrifying. If the 2 of them joined forces, they could even shatter the whirling world, let alone destroy the Mystic Nebulous sect and other forces. At that moment, an old man suddenly appeared behind the 2 women. The old man bowed slightly and said, Sect Master Li Xianxia of the Profound Nether Sect has come to visit. Do you want to see him? Hearing this, Yushi looked at Yuzun and said with a smile, why do you think he came here? Venerable Yu spoke indifferently. He wants us to join forces with him. Yushi smiled and said, yes. The old man bowed slightly and then quietly retreated. A moment later, Li Xianxia appeared in front of the 2 women. Yushi stood up and said with a smile, Brother Li, why are you free to come to my whirling sect today? Li Xianxia smiled and said, Sect Master Yu, to tell you the truth, I came this time because I have something to ask of you. Yushi rolled his eyes at Li Xianxia. Brother Li, what do you mean by begging? You're treating me like an outsider. What's the matter, Brother Li, just say it. Li Xianxia looked at Yushi. Sect Leader Yu, I think you should already know what happened in the 5th dimension. Yushi blinked. What is it? Li Xianxui's expression was calm. Damn, this woman is playing dumb. Li Xianxia smiled slightly. Sect Leader Yu, I will be straightforward. We underestimated the power behind Yi Xian in the 5th dimension. This time we want the Whirling sect to join us. If Sect Leader Yu agrees, after we kill Yi Xian, all the Dao scriptures on him will belong to the Whirling sect. Yuzun glanced at Li Xianxia. Needless to say, Li Xianxui's conditions were very tempting. After all, if the Whirling sect obtained the Taoist scriptures from Yi Xian, they would have a total of 7 Taoist scriptures. Of course, not to mention 7 Daoist scriptures, the whirling sect wouldn't even be tempted by 9 Daoist scriptures. They didn't dare to be tempted. Yushi smiled. Sect leaderly, this condition is very tempting. However, sect leaderly, I will tell you the truth. This time, we won't interfere in the matter between you and the 5th dimension. Li Xianxia frowned. Why? Yushi smiled slightly. Sect leaderly, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but why should we interfere? Li Xianxia was silent. Yushi continued. Sect leaderly, if you obtain the Taoist scriptures from Zhou Xian, my whirling sect won't be jealous. Li Xianxia glanced at Yushi and said, farewell. With that he turned and left. After Li Xianxia left, Yuzun suddenly said, actually if they go to the 5th dimension now they can still be saved. Yushi looked at Yuzun. How? Yuzun smiled. Admit your mistake and beg for mercy. Yushi smiled. They won't. Yuzun nodded. As if thinking of something, she suddenly looked at Yushi. Senior sister, why didn't you tell him about the true strength of the person behind Zhou Xian? Yushi blinked. He didn't ask. Yuzun gave a thumbs up. No wonder Master passed the position of sect leader to you. Amazing. Yushi smiled. If you want, I can give it to you right now. Yuzun stood up and walked over to Yushi. Senior sister, if I had the intention to fight for the position of sect leader, would you have let me go? Yushi grabbed Yuzun's hand and smiled lightly. Am I that bad in your heart? Yuzun smiled. Even now, I still can't see through you. Yushi looked at Yuzun. After I took over the whirling sect, have I harmed anyone? Yuzun was silent for a moment, then smiled. I was thinking too much. With that she turned and left. On the spot Yushi said softly, silly girl. Somewhere in the clouds, more and more experts were gathering here. They were experts from all over the world. And they were all summoned by Xuanhuan sect and other forces. The experts of the Xuanhuan sect and other forces had also arrived. At this moment, there were 69 Consolidation Realm experts gathered here. In addition, there were more than 300 Dao Attainment Realm experts and thousands of Dao Defense Realm experts. It seemed like a lot, but it was actually normal because most of the top experts in the whirling world were here. In the 5-dimensional universe. After Zhou Xian and the white-robed woman returned to the 5-dimensional universe, they did not stop. Instead, they directly went to the teleportation formation to the whirling world. The white-robed woman glanced at Suzhou in the distance. You can stay here. Suzhou hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Okay. The white-robed woman nodded slightly, then led Zhou Xian towards the teleportation formation. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind them. Count me in. Zhou Xian turned around and saw that the person who spoke was Situ Tingyun. The white-robed woman said, I alone am enough. Situ Tingyun smiled. I want to join in the fun. The white-robed woman was about to speak when Zhou Xian suddenly said, Then let's go together. Situ Tingyun smiled. Then let's go. After saying that, she turned into a sword light and entered the teleportation formation. The white-robed woman and Zhou Xian disappeared on the spot. In the teleportation formation passage, Zhou Xian looked at Situ Tingyun. Senior sister, I would like to ask you for advice on Sword Dao. Sword Dao. Situ Tingyun blinked, then smiled. The person beside you is also a swordsman. And a powerful swordsman. Zhou Xian looked at the white-robed woman. Are you a sword and fist cultivator? The white-robed woman nodded. Sort of. Zhou Xian hurriedly said, Then can you provide me with some guidance in Sword Dao? The white-robed woman glanced at Zhou Xian and then she said, Your current Sword Dao already has a flavor of its own. However, it's still very lacking in terms of intent. Zhou Xian nodded. Yes. Is there any way to improve it? The white-robed woman thought for a moment and then she said, I can point you in a direction. As for whether you're able to improve it, that's up to you. Zhou Xian nodded. All right. The white-robed woman said, Your current comprehension of the Sword Dao has attained the level of the unrestrained sword heart. What is the unrestrained sword heart? It's when the sword isn't restrained by yourself or anything else. However, your sword hasn't attained true freedom. What is freedom? It's freedom that comes naturally from not attaining it. You're far from attaining that level right now. The reason you're unable to attain that level is because you have too many trivial matters and too many burdens. There's an invisible shackle in your heart, and it's preventing you from attaining true freedom. Zhou Xian fell silent. He understood what the white-robed woman meant. Because of the matter regarding the fifth dimension, he was utterly unable to attain true freedom in the sword heart. Xian asked another question. Then what about the level above the unrestrained sword heart? The white-robed woman gazed at Xian and said, I can't tell you that. Xian was slightly puzzled. Why? The white-robed woman spoke softly, You've already created your own path in the sword Dao. You can only explore this path on your own. Do you understand what I mean? Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, If you continue on this path, then your sword Dao will truly create a path that truly belongs to you. At that time, you'll become someone that isn't within your realm of cultivation. As for our path in the sword Dao, even though you can walk it as well, there's no need for you to. Xian nodded slightly. I understand. The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun in the distance and said, Her sword Dao was also created by her own. Situ Tingyun nodded. Regardless of whether it's the sword Dao or any other path, it's best to walk one's own path. Even though it's much simpler to walk someone else's path, there are too many limitations. As she spoke, she smiled faintly. In our eyes, there are only two types of people in this world. One is within the realm of cultivation, and the other is outside the realm of cultivation. Those within the realm of cultivation are equivalent to what the Milky Way realm calls the novice village. Those outside the realm of cultivation are the true experts. Xian blinked. What's the meaning of novice village? Situ Tingyun smiled and said, It means that they're very, very weak. Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued, Of course the owner of this scripture is considered an expert. However, those who walk his path are not. Unless one surpasses him, one can only be considered to be unconventional. Unconventional, Xian said in a low voice. Is the owner of this scripture very formidable? Situ Tingyun smiled and said, I've never seen him. However, he was able to create a complete martial arts system, so he's definitely a genius amongst geniuses. Such a person is rare in this world. The white-robed woman nodded. This scripture's martial arts system is not bad indeed. As for the owner of this scripture, I've never seen him before, so I won't comment on him. Xian suddenly asked, What about the woman in the plain dress? How strong is she? Situ Tingyun fell silent. The white-robed woman fell silent as well. Xian glanced at the two of them and said softly, Both of you should know, right? Situ Tingyun gazed at the white-robed woman. Ask her. Xian gazed at the white-robed woman. The latter fell silent for a moment before she said, Let's change the topic. Xian was speechless. Chapter 1436. Xian glanced at the white-robed woman. Obviously, she didn't want to talk about the Qing. What exactly happened during her generation? Why did only 2 out of the 4 Qing remain in the end? Xian was quite curious. However, he didn't ask any further. Suddenly, the 3 of them stopped moving because an old man had suddenly appeared not too far away from them. The white-robed woman gazed at the old man with a calm expression and indifference in her eyes. The old man's gaze descended onto Xian. You're Xian. Xian nodded. The old man glanced at the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun and then he smiled. What? You've only brought 2 people with you? Xian nodded. The old man laughed with ridicule. Xian, who are you looking down on? Xian was speechless. The old man sized up the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun again, and then he smiled. Xian, don't you think you've brought too few people with you? Xian thought for a while. Then he said, Yes, it is a little too little. The old man was about to speak when Situ Tingyun suddenly said, All of you seem to have been waiting for us? The old man gazed at Situ Tingyun. We've been waiting for a long time. Situ Tingyun blinked. Then lead the way. The old man glanced at Xian's group of 3. Come on then. We've prepared a huge gift for all of you. I hope you like it. He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment. I'm a little panicked. Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun. You've learned quite a bit from him. As soon as she finished speaking, she led Xian off into the distance. Situ Tingyun chuckled and then she followed after them. Whirling world. At this moment, a few thousand people had gathered at the teleportation formation. There were a total of 98 consolidation realm experts amongst them. Moreover, there were over 500 Dao attainment realm experts. Among them, there were thousands of Dao defense realm experts. The Xuanhuan sect and the other three superforces had used all the resources they could. This time they were serious. And they didn't dare to underestimate him. The fall of dozens of Consolidation Realm experts made them realize that they were definitely not facing an ordinary force. At that moment, an old man walked out from the teleportation formation. Not far away, Xianxia, the sect master of the mystic fraudulent sect, opened his eyes and looked at the elder. The elder said solemnly, "They're here." Xianxia narrowed his eyes. "How many?" The old man said, "Including Zhou Xian, that makes 3. 3 people." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Xianxia frowned. "Are you sure there are only 3 of them?" The old man nodded. "Just 3. However, the aura of those 2 women is very calm. I'm afraid they're not ordinary people." 3 people. Xianxia looked at the entrance of the teleportation array with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Zhou Xian only brought 2 women to the Saga world? Was he confident, or did he have a backup plan? The Shao clan's patriarch Shao Jing spoke abruptly. "It isn't that simple." The Dao Convergence Dean Yunmin nodded. "Yes, we can't be careless." Xianxia gazed at the teleportation formation. "Then let's see how extraordinary they are." As he spoke, he closed his eyes slowly. Actually, there was a trace of uneasiness in his heart. It was absolutely impossible for Zhou Xian to have no backup plan. Or perhaps, it could be said that those 2 women were absolutely not ordinary people. But at this moment they had no way out. They couldn't beg for mercy from Zhou Xian, right? He couldn't do something like that. 2 women gazed silently at Xianxia's group from high up in the clouds. They were Yuzun and Yushi. Yushi smiled. "Junior sister, looks like Xianxia and the others are prepared to fight to the death." Yuzun spoke softly. "Let's just watch in silence." Yushi gazed at Yuzun. "Do you know that if Zhou Xian loses, then all of these powers will turn against my Saga sect?" Yuzun fell silent. If Zhou Xian lost, then Xianxia would definitely utilize this opportunity to annihilate the Saga sect. Yushi was just about to speak when the teleportation formation in the distance suddenly started trembling. Both of them gazed at the teleportation formation. The gazes of everyone here descended onto the teleportation formation, and it didn't take long for 3 people to walk out from it. 2 women and a man. It was Zhou Xian's group of 3. When Zhou Xian walked out from the teleportation formation, he was instantly stunned. Isn't there a little too many people here? Moreover, there are actually so many experts here. The Shao clan's patriarch suddenly walked over to Zhou Xian's group of 3, and he gazed at Zhou Xian. "You're Zhou Xian." Zhou Xian nodded. Shao Jing smiled. "Young Master Yi, we underestimated you. I never expected that such an enormous power would actually stand behind you." As he spoke, he glanced at the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyin. "However, aren't you looking down on the experts of my Saga world a little too much by only bringing 2 people with you?" Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly shook her head. "You talk too much." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Shao Jing's pupils constricted, and then he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The spectators hadn't even been able to see it clearly when a figure was blasted flying. It was Xianxia. Xianxia frantically retreated. In the process of retreating, his physical body cracked inch by inch and his soul gradually dissipated. When he finally stopped, his physical body had already disappeared and his soul was almost transparent. Everyone in the surroundings was petrified when they witnessed this scene. The patriarch of the Shao clan is gone just like that? At this moment, Xianxia's countenance was pale while his eyes were filled with disbelief. He hadn't imagined that the patriarch of the Shao clan would be instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, all the experts of the Saga sect were terrified. This wasn't victory, it was instant annihilation. He'd instantly annihilated a peak Unity Realm expert with a single punch. On the other side, Yushi's expression instantly became solemn as well. At this moment she finally understood why her junior sister was so afraid of the 5th dimension. This woman was too strong. The white-robed woman gazed at Xianxia from afar. Xianxia's expression changed and he said ferociously, "Everyone attack together." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the Black Illusion sect charged forward. The experts of the other sects were about to attack as well. Right at this moment, the white-robed woman smashed her fist forward. Bang! All the experts of the Black Illusion sect that were charging towards her were instantly annihilated by a single punch. Over 100 Dao Attainment Realm experts and over a dozen Unity Realm experts had been instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, the surroundings were so silent that a falling needle could be heard. So many experts had been instantly annihilated just like that. Everyone looked at the white-robed woman as if they were looking at a monster. On the other side, Yushi's expression was extremely solemn as well. She stared fixedly at the white-robed woman, and the shock in her heart couldn't be any greater. What sort of godly strength is this? In the distance, the white-robed woman gazed at Xianxia. Xianxia gulped and spoke with a trembling voice. "Senior, this is a misunderstanding." Everyone was speechless. The white-robed woman was expressionless. What misunderstanding? Xianxia's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. At this moment, the Dao Returning Academy's Dean Yunmin suddenly walked in front of the white-robed woman and bowed respectfully. "Senior, we are here today to welcome young Master Yi and you." Everyone was speechless. Yunmin bowed again and said, "Senior, if we have offended you before, please." The white-robed woman suddenly opened her palm, and the Dao scripture on Yi Xian's body flew into her hand. She looked at Xianxia and the others. "This is the Dao scripture that my brother obtained. Don't you want his Dao scripture? It's here now. Come and get it." Yunmin said with a trembling voice. "No. I wouldn't dare." The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. "Wouldn't dare? You forced my brother to almost self-destruct. Still wouldn't dare?" As soon as she finished speaking, she blasted out a punch. Bang! Yunmin's entire body was annihilated by this punch. He didn't even have a chance to fight back. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, and they immediately fled. Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly spoke fiercely. "Did I say that all of you could leave?" As she spoke, she smashed her fist forward, and an expert that was over 1 kilometer away was instantly obliterated by this punch. Everyone had stopped what they were doing. They didn't dare to move. The white-robed woman glanced coldly at them. "Do you want to live?" Everyone was stunned, and then they hurriedly nodded. The white-robed woman gazed at Xianxia. "What about you?" Xianxia spoke with a trembling voice. "I do. Don't beg for mercy." "No. It isn't shameful to beg for mercy when facing such an expert." The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, "This is my brother." Everyone looked at Yi Xian. The white-robed woman continued. "He's from the 9th dimension. He's the master of the 9th dimension, and he's reincarnated here to play." Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone glanced at each other. The 9th dimension? Does the 9th dimension really exist? The white-robed woman continued. "If you want to live, it's very simple. Follow my brother. In the future he'll take you to the 9th dimension to play." Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone was speechless. Xianxia's expression was somewhat strange. "Why does it seem like this senior is tricking us?" The white-robed woman frowned slightly. "What, you don't believe me?" Hearing this, Xianxia hurriedly said, "I believe, of course I believe." Everyone else nodded hurriedly. The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. "Is it a grievance to follow my brother?" Xianxia hurriedly shook his head. "No. It's not grievance. It's our honor to follow young Master Yi." The white-robed woman was silent, and no one knew what she was thinking. Afraid that the white-robed woman would go back on her words, Xianxia hurriedly came before Yi Xian and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, from now on we are your people." Yi Xian ignored Xianxia. He walked to the white-robed woman's side and said softly, "Qingge." The white-robed woman slowly closed her eyes. "Brother, I'm leaving." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Leaving?" The white-robed woman nodded. She opened her palm and a blood-red thread suddenly appeared on her hand. Yi Xian was stunned. "This is..." The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. "The cause of calamity," Yi Xian said solemnly. "What do you mean?" The white-robed woman raised her head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. There was a trace of confusion in her eyes. "I underestimated this cause of calamity." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment he thought of Nian Nian. Was Nian Nian's death really related to the Dao ancestor? With Nian Nian's strength, even if it was less than 20%, it should be enough to kill the Dao ancestor. Moreover, Nian Nian lost her memory. This was very unusual. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Everyone in the surroundings looked up into the sky. Xianxia gazed at Gu Wuchao with slight astonishment. What are you doing? Gu Wuchao laughed fiercely. She wants us to follow Yi Xian? He's probably overthinking things. As he spoke, he bowed deeply towards the sky. Greetings, ancestor. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure gradually condensed in the sky, and it wasn't long before a white-haired old man appeared within their fields of vision. The profound sect's ancestor. The white-haired old man glanced at the surroundings, and then he gazed at Gu Wuchao in the end. Has my profound sect encountered a threat of life and death? Gu Wuchao nodded and spoke respectfully, yes. As he spoke, he pointed at the white-robed woman in the distance. Ancestor, it's her who intends to destroy my profound sect. The white-haired old man gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman's expression was calm. The white-robed old man seemed to have noticed something and his pupils constricted. He turned around to look at Gu Wuchao and roared furiously, "You idiot! How could you screw over your ancestors like this? I'll fuck your ancestors." Everyone in the surroundings was speechless. P.S. Do you have tickets? Chapter 1437. Gu Wuchao was quite stunned. What's going on? The white-haired old man cupped his fists to the white-robed woman and said respectfully, "May I know your name, senior?" Senior. Everyone here was petrified when they heard the white-haired old man. The ancestor of the Dark Secret sect actually addressed the white-robed woman as senior? At this moment, Xianxia was covered in cold sweat. Because he'd actually wanted to summon his ancestor as well. That was the final trump card of the Dark Secret sect. However, he'd hesitated because he wasn't sure if his ancestor could resist the white-robed woman. But he hadn't expected that Gu Wuchao would summon his ancestor. Fortunately, Gu Wuchao had summoned his ancestor. Otherwise he would be finished. The white-robed woman gazed at the white-haired old man. "Are you not going to lend a hand?" The white-haired old man hurriedly shook his head. "Of course not. Of course not." The white-robed woman's face was emotionless as she gazed at Gu Wuchao. The latter's expression changed and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. "We're willing to follow young Master Yi to the death." The white-robed woman paid no attention to Gu Wuchao and she gazed at Yi Xian. "Come with me." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." The white-robed woman turned around and left. Yi Xian followed her. Situ Tingyun glanced at the others here and they were looking at her as well. Situ Tingyun blinked. "Does anyone want to spar with me?" All of them were speechless. At the other side, Yi Xian and the white-robed woman were strolling through the clouds. The white-robed woman said, "I have to go." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Qing, do you know much about the cause of calamity?" The white-robed woman shook her head. "Not much." She paused for a moment and continued, "I've been constantly investigating the cause of calamity throughout the years, and I've made some progress. I'll get to the bottom of it once I leave." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Why can't I sense the cause of calamity within me?" The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. "Because you're not strong enough." Yi Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman said softly, "The cause of the calamity is mainly this cause. Everything in the world has a cause and an effect. We don't know how this cause was formed." As she spoke, she looked up at the starry sky and said softly, "People living in this world are like chess pieces on a chessboard. Of course, the chess player might also be a chess piece. Fate is like an invisible hand that controls everything in the world." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Am I that chess piece?" The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. She grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said softly, "This universe is boundless and there are too many unknowns. Look at this starry sky. There are countless galaxies and planets. These galaxies and planets are all moving confidently according to some kind of law. How could all of this be a coincidence? If it wasn't a coincidence, then who created all of this? Both you and I could be pawns. Even the three of them didn't dare to say that they were invincible in the universe." Yi Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, "I'm going to leave this place and investigate the cause of your calamity. You have to take care of yourself from now on, understand?" Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. "Will there be any danger?" The white-robed woman shook her head. "I don't know." Yi Xian was just about to say something when the white-robed woman said with a smile, "I can protect myself." She gently hugged Yi Xian as she spoke. Yi Xian's body stiffened. Yi Xian didn't notice that 2 streams of clear liquid had appeared on the white-robed woman's cheeks. After a long while, the white-robed woman released Yi Xian. She pulled out a storage ring and placed it in Yi Xian's hand with a faint smile. There's still time. She pointed a finger toward the sky as she spoke. The space in the sky suddenly cracked open. Immediately afterward, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the cracked space. Gone. Down below, Yi Xian's gaze was slightly blank. The white-robed woman stopped somewhere in the starry sky. She looked at her palm and there were already 2 bloody marks on it. The white-robed woman's expression was cold and no one knew what she was thinking. Moments later, she suddenly turned and looked down. After a long moment of silence, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the starry sky. The whirling world. Yi Xian returned to the teleportation portal. Situ Tingyun looked at Yi Xian. She left. Yi Xian nodded. Situ Tingyun smiled. Then I'm leaving as well. Yi Xian looked at Situ Tingyun. Senior sister, where are you going? Situ Tingyun laughed. I'm going to find a place that makes me feel threatened. Yi Xian. Situ Tingyun walked over to Yi Xian and patted Yi Xian on the shoulder. Little junior brother, we'll meet again. As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to leave. However, she seemed to have thought of something and she suddenly gazed at the ancestor of the School of Secrets in the sky. The latter's expression changed. Sir? Situ Tingyun smiled. Don't be nervous. I don't kill people indiscriminately. The old man was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued. I want to show my ability before I leave and you're the strongest here. So make your move. The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment before he said, I can't defeat you. Situ Tingyun rolled her eyes. I didn't say that you can defeat me. I just asked you to make your move and then I'll show my ability. The white-haired old man was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued, make your move quickly. I'm busy. Right, remember to use your full strength. The white-haired old man glanced at Situ Tingyun. Then I'll have to offend you. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened his palm. In the next moment, he suddenly slapped it towards Situ Tingyun. Bang! A palm swept down from the sky. As soon as it appeared, the expressions of countless experts in the surroundings changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. Because the energy contained within that palm was truly too terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression had become solemn as well. That palm had definitely surpassed the perfect union realm. The white-haired old man stared fixedly at Situ Tingyun. He wanted to witness her strength as well. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was looking at Situ Tingyun as well. The corners of Situ Tingyun's mouth curled up slightly. Her left thumb twitched slightly, and then a sword suddenly flew out from within its sheath. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed from below, and then a sword was pressed against the white-haired old man's throat. On the other hand, the white-haired old man's attack had vanished without a trace. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Gu Wuchao's legs even felt slightly weak. At this moment he finally understood why his ancestor had been so terrified. It was too fucking terrifying. The white-haired old man gazed at Situ Tingyun with a complicated expression. Senior's sword Dao is unparalleled throughout the ages. Situ Tingyun roared with laughter and then she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. That attack from before is called instant death. Every strike of my sword kills an enemy within a 3 kilometers radius. I've once utilized this sword technique to kill a person who's 2 realms of cultivation above him. Now I'll pass it down to you. When she spoke up to this point, she seemed to have thought of something and she roared with laughter. All those years ago he passed down sword intent to me and allowed me to step into the sword Dao. Today I'll pass down my sword technique to you. Interesting. Ha. As she spoke, she tapped with her finger and a ray of light shot into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Yi Xian's figure trembled, and it didn't take long for countless pieces of information to surge into his mind. Situ Tingyun gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Little junior brother, we'll meet again in the future. I hope we'll be able to discuss the Dao with the sword when we do. As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the horizon. She's gone. The experts from the whirling world instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw Situ Tingyun leave as well. Meanwhile, 2 women suddenly arrived in front of Yi Xian, and it was Yu Shi and Yu Zun. Yu Shi grinned. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian gazed at Yu Shi. You're the sect master of the whirling sect? Yushi smiled. I am. As she spoke, she opened her palm and a scripture appeared there. She passed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is the last scripture. Fate brought us together today, so I'll give it to young Master Yi. Fate. Li Xianxia and the others had extremely strange expressions on their faces. Damn it. She really knows how to talk. Needless to say, the whirling sect had really become the biggest winner. Because the whirling sect hadn't suffered any losses this time. Actually, they'd come to an understanding now. The reason the whirling sect hadn't joined forces with them was definitely because they knew how formidable the person standing behind Yi Xian was, so they refused to cooperate with them. But this woman just refused to tell them. She'd caused them to be practically annihilated. She was too treacherous. Yi Xian glanced at Yushi. He didn't refuse and he took the scripture and said, Sect Master Yu, I've gathered all 9 scriptures and I'm willing to share them with the whirling sect. Yushi blinked. Really? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Yushi grinned. Thank you, young Master Yi. Actually, she was really happy. Because even if Yi Xian didn't share them with the whirling sect, she wouldn't dare say anything. She didn't know if Yi Xian was really the master of the 9th dimension, but she knew that he was absolutely not an ordinary person. After Yi Xian put the scripture away, he glanced at everyone here. Everyone return to your respective residences. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Li Xianxia hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, we're all following you now. You. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he said, I'll look for all of you if I need anything. Li Xianxia hesitated for a moment and then he said, Young Master Yi, I'll follow by your side. All the experts of the Black Hat sect had been killed, so it was utterly meaningless for him to stay in the whirling world. Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Xianxia added, Young Master Yi, my Black Hat sect has been around for over 100,000 years and we still have some finances. If young Master Yi doesn't mind, then I'll give them to young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at Li Xianxia and the latter hurriedly said, I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to follow young Master Yi. Now Yi Xian was his only way out. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. All right. Li Xianxia hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, please wait a moment. I'll go back and pack up. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the experts of the Dao Returning Institute and the Shao clan in the distance. They didn't make a stand. He didn't force them. Obviously, they wanted to stay in the whirling world and they didn't really want to follow Yi Xian. After all, no one liked to be the subordinate of another. Moreover, the white-robed woman and the swordsman had left. Right at this moment, the ancestor of the profound secret sect suddenly looked at Gu Wuchao and said angrily, What are you still looking at? Hurry up and pay your respects to young Master Yi. Are you trying to make me crawl out of my coffin from anger? Gu Wuchao was speechless. Chapter 1438. When he heard the white-haired old man, Gu Wuchao hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. From today onward, my profound secret sect swears to follow young Master Yi to the death. Yi Xian gazed at the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man grinned. Young brother, it's their honor to follow you. He hesitated for a moment as he spoke and then he said, I hope you'll treat them well as well. Actually, even though everyone here was aware that the white-robed woman and the swordsman were terrifying, they didn't know exactly how terrifying they were. However, the white-haired old man knew. Because he was an expert above the oneness realm. However, not to mention that he was only a strand of his soul, even his main body wouldn't be a match for a single attack from that woman. In other words, the strength of those 2 women had exceeded the scope of his understanding. If the profound secret sect followed Yi Xian, then it would definitely be able to attain glory once more. In the profound secret sect's opinion, it wasn't submission, it was an opportunity. An enormous opportunity. On many occasions, the accomplishments a person could attain in the future depended on who that person followed. The profound secret sect had arrived at a certain height, and it was very difficult for it to improve further. Unless an extraordinarily monstrous genius appeared within the sect. However, that was even more difficult. Because it had been many years since an expert above the oneness realm had appeared in the whirling world. Now, an opportunity had been placed before the profound secret sect, and it was to follow Yi Xian and rely on Yi Xian to bring the profound secret sect to a new height. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment when he heard the white-haired old man, and then he nodded, all right. He didn't refuse them. The reason Qing, or hadn't killed them was because she wanted to leave and leave some help for him. But now he really did need help. He wanted to reorganize the fifth dimension and the doubting. He wanted to truly rebuild order. And he needed people to accomplish all of that. After they heard the profound secret sect's ancestor speak, the other powers expressed their submission as well. They suddenly understood something, and it was that Zhou Xian was a backer. This thigh was right here, so why not cling to it? Now that the profound secret sect had Zhou Xian as their backer, if they didn't submit, what would they do if the profound secret sect came looking for trouble with them in the future? Most importantly, there was still the whirling sect in the whirling world. This time the whirling sect didn't suffer any losses. Could be said that the whirling sect was currently the strongest sect. If they didn't cozy up to Zhou Xian, it was very likely that they would be devoured by the whirling sect. So, after weighing the pros and cons, basically all the powers present expressed their willingness to submit to Zhou Xian. And Zhou Xian did not refuse. Meanwhile, Li Xianxia appeared here and he walked over to Zhou Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, let's go." Zhou Xian nodded. "All right." As he spoke, he glanced at the others. "All of you stay here and wait for my orders." Everyone hurriedly nodded. Zhou Xian turned around and left with Li Xianxia. After the two of them left, the others glanced at each other and their eyes were filled with bitterness. This time all of them were almost finished. On the other side, the whirling sect's master, Yushi, remained silent, and no one knew what he was thinking. Exaltu smiled. "Senior sister, are you slightly disappointed?" Yushi smiled. "What are you disappointed about?" Exaltu gazed at the experts in the distance. "Senior sister, you're disappointed that those two didn't kill all of them. If those two seniors killed all of them, then the whirling world would belong to my whirling sect. But now, all of them have sided with Zhou Xian, so we can't attack or curse them. We seem to be quite passive instead, right?" Exaltu smiled. "Indeed." Yushi spoke softly. "Senior sister. Regardless of whether we admit it or not, that young Master Yi isn't someone we can afford to offend now. Even if he wants our whirling sect to submit, we have no other choice." Yushi fell silent. Exaltu continued. "Fortunately, that young Master Yi doesn't seem to be very interested in the whirling world." Yushi suddenly raised his head and looked towards the horizon and he spoke softly. "I'm curious now. I'm curious about exactly what level of cultivation those two women have attained, and where they've gone." A short while later, everyone here left. Once all of them left, a slovenly old man appeared here. This slovenly old man was called over by the White Cloud Swordsman, and everything had come to an end when he arrived here. The slovenly old man fell silent for a long time before he spoke softly. "That young Master Yi isn't simple at all." Meanwhile, a figure suddenly appeared by the slovenly old man's side. It was the ancestor of the Dark Abyss, Dao Brother's second brother. Dao Brother's second brother gazed towards the direction Zhou Xian had left towards. "Senior brother, long time no see." The slovenly old man's face remained emotionless. "Your Dark Abyss is gone." Dao Brother's second brother smiled. "If it's gone, then it's gone. What's the big deal?" The slovenly old man gazed at Dao Brother's second brother. "You won't give up, right?" Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. "Do you think I should give up?" The slovenly old man shook his head. "Junior brother, why? You and Yuan were in the wrong in this matter." Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. "I don't care if I'm in the wrong or not. All I know is that kindness must be repaid and enmity must be repaid." The slovenly old man spoke softly. "If you choose to take revenge, then you'll be doomed eternally." Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man. "Senior brother, do you know his true identity?" The slovenly old man shook his head. "I don't." Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man and smiled. "Senior brother, you didn't come back for this person, right?" The slovenly old man glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. "Junior brother, out of respect for Master, I'll say one more thing. Give up on taking revenge. If you insist on taking revenge, then you'll really be doomed eternally." He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. "Senior brother, aren't you underestimating me?" The slovenly old man sighed. "We're used to being invincible in Master's era. However, we don't know that there's always someone better out there." Dao Brother's second brother chuckled. "How interesting. Two women scared you, senior brother. Senior brother, you're becoming less and less courageous as you live." The slovenly old man turned around and glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. Master once said, "Don't argue with a retard because it will lower your IQ." I think Master's words are very reasonable. Dao brother's second brother looked at the slovenly old man. Senior brother, don't forget that the Dao scripture belongs to our Dao sect. Now it's in the hands of outsiders. Why don't you have any thoughts about it? The slovenly old man was silent. Dao brother's second brother smiled. You don't have any thoughts, but I do. I believe that third junior sister and junior brother will not allow the Dao scripture to fall into the hands of outsiders. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. The slovenly old man sighed softly. Xian brought Li Xianxia back to the fifth dimension. Inside the main hall, Guan Yin and the others were there, as were the experts of the Dao Ting. It was worth mentioning that Bai Dizzy was also there. And now, the affairs of the entire fifth dimension were not only handled by Guan Yin alone, but also by Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy's management skills were really terrifying, not something that Guan Yin could compare to. It should be known that Xian's side was not only in the fifth dimension but also in the sixth dimension, the Dao world, the Dao Ting, the underworld. There were so many places and so many forces. It could be said that Guan Yin's ability was already somewhat insufficient. But after Bai Dizzy's arrival, she suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. As for fighting for power, whether it was her or Bai Dizzy, they did not have that level of power. Ordinary power was simply meaningless to them. Now Guan Yin was slowly delegating power because she also began to pay attention to personal cultivation. Over the years, because she had to deal with complicated matters, her cultivation had fallen behind. Xian looked at everyone. Now our crisis has been temporarily resolved, but we still have a lot of things to do. At this time Bai Dizzy walked out. He bowed slightly to Xian and said, I have something to report. Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. Speak. Bai Dizzy nodded. We have 3 things to do now. The first is to formulate a set of laws that everyone will abide by. This set of laws will be the standard by which we will manage this world in the future. Those who violate the laws, no matter who they are, will be severely punished. I have already drafted this set of laws and I will show it to you later. Xian shook his head. Not only for me to see but also for everyone in the hall. Moreover, it has to be shown to the world. Bai Dizzy looked at Xian. Xian said, this set of laws will be the foundation by which we will manage this world in the future. So this set of laws can't be formulated by a single person or a few people. Everyone should participate in it. When they heard this, everyone hurriedly nodded to express their agreement. Bai Dizzy glanced at Xian and nodded. That's for the best. As for the second matter, even though the external crisis has been resolved, there might be an internal crisis soon. Alliance leader Yi, all the powers are envious of the mineral veins that you obtained earlier. Besides that, there are also some places in our universe with abundant spirit energy that everyone is envious of. Now the thoughts of many people have started to drift away. So, we have to be extremely careful in how we distribute the benefits. Xian glanced at Bai Dizzy. This Bai Dizzy has really thought things through. Actually, many powers have started to fall into chaos from within before collapsing. The current fifth dimension must also pay attention to this point. Bai Dizzy continued, as for the third matter, that is development. Vigorously develop. For now we have resolved the crisis. However, because of Alliance leader Yi, this crisis might not exist for the time being. In the future there might be an even bigger crisis. Xian's face was filled with black lines. The White Emperor's son continued, in short, we need to be strong enough to protect ourselves. In addition, we must train as many outstanding people as possible. After a moment of silence, Xian said, everyone retreat. Bai Dizzy, you stay behind. Everyone looked at each other and retreated. Inside the hall, only Xian and Bai Dizzy were left. Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. Do you think that now is the right time to rebuild order? Bai Dizzy shook his head. Not suitable? Xian was somewhat puzzled. Why? Bai Dizzy softly said, because we have more problems to deal with. For example, the internal balance of power, how to divide the benefits. If these problems are not dealt with properly, it will be a hidden bomb. If you are not here one day, this bomb will explode and the entire fifth dimension will instantly collapse. As he said this, he looked at Xian. Right now we can only take one step at a time. You must not be too hasty. Moreover, I feel that the problem you should be thinking about right now is not the fifth dimension and order, but the problem of your strength and the reason for your disaster. Moreover, the Dark Abyss has been destroyed, but is the ancestor Dark Abyss still alive? Will he take revenge? Moreover, you now have the complete version of the Tao scripture. This temptation is too great. Will some hidden forces come to snatch it? They might not dare to openly, but what about in the dark? Moreover, those two seniors have already left. If you are in danger, can you immediately let them come to the fifth dimension? The most important thing is that they are very strong, but this does not mean that you are strong. Do you understand? Xian was silent. P.S. Yesterday when I went to the real estate market, I suddenly discovered that I am a bit poor. FPSW. Chapter 1439. In the hall, Bai Dizzy glanced at Xian with a complicated expression. Alliance leader Yi, don't think that our crisis has been resolved. In fact, according to my understanding and investigation of you, this matter is definitely not over. Xian said softly, the cause of calamity? Bai Dizzy nodded. Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy continued, for now your top priority is to improve your strength. It would be best if you could attain Tao or even unification. Xian nodded. I understand. Bai Dizzy continued, do you still have the Tao cause and God's seal that the ancestor gave you? Xian nodded. Of course. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, I will make arrangements. Now you are the spiritual belief of our entire five-dimensional universe. This belief must be materialized. I will get people to build statues of you all over the world so that people will believe in you. Then you will be able to obtain the power of faith continuously. Xian frowned. Brainwashing. Bai Dizzy shook his head. It's not brainwashing. The entire universe treats you as their spiritual belief. You are the one who gave the five-dimensional universe everything. They are willing to believe in you. However, I want to materialize this power of faith for you to use. Xian thought about it and nodded. All right. Bai Dizzy continued, there is one more thing. I have already recalled many of the former Tao guardians. They also need the power of faith. Of course, if they want the power of faith, they will have to fight for it themselves. Of course, I will take care of it and not let them act recklessly for the sake of fighting for the power of faith. In addition, I will reintegrate the five-dimensional universe, the Tao world, the six-dimensional universe, and the Tao Ting. I will try my best to integrate everyone into one. There will be no division between the five-dimensional and the six-dimensional universe. Xian nodded. This is very necessary. Bai Dizzy nodded. What I'm most afraid of is them forming small groups. If that happens, it will be very troublesome to manage them. Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. I'll leave these matters to you. Bai Dizzy nodded. I will take care of the matters of the five-dimensional universe. As for you, you must increase your strength as soon as possible. Also, if possible, help Miss Nian recover her memories. If she does, our universe will be safer. Xian shook his head. I can't do anything about that. Bai Dizzy said in a low voice. Did Miss Nian deliberately lose her memory? Xian nodded. It's highly possible. Bai Dizzy frowned. Why would she deliberately choose to lose her memory? Is it because of the disaster seed on you? Xian whispered. Maybe it's because of this. Why didn't the white-robed Qinger stay? Because of the cause of calamity. The cause of calamity had already affected her, so she chose to leave immediately. In other words, the stronger the person by her side, especially the kind of person who could change the trajectory of her fate, the more likely she would be targeted by the cause of calamity. And now Nian was not targeted by the cause of calamity. Because she did not have the strength. Was that the reason? Xian did not know. But he knew that Nian definitely had her reasons for doing this. Bai Dizzy sighed softly. Her expression was complicated. Then let's not talk about Miss Nian. Let's talk about you. You should have gathered all 9 Tao scriptures by now, right? Xian nodded. Yes. Bai Dizzy looked at Xian. Many people are paying attention to you. Xian smiled. You want me to share them? Bai Dizzy nodded. Xian smiled. Then do you think I should share them? Bai Dizzy looked at Xian. It depends on whether you want to or not. If you don't want to, no one can force you. Xian said softly. I promised them that I would share them. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. Even if you want to share them, you can't just casually share them. Some people's cultivation is not enough to comprehend this Tao scripture. Do you understand what I mean? Xian nodded. Bai Dizzy said. You deal with these things yourself. With that he left. Inside the hall. Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. He opened his palm. The 9 Tao scriptures appeared in front of him. At this moment Yi Ximing appeared beside him. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. I never thought that I would really gather all 9 Dao scriptures. I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Yi Jiming said. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. With that, he looked at the last 3 Dao scriptures. 2 of the scrolls were obtained from an yuan. These 2 scrolls were Dao and Law. Yi Xian frowned. Dao, Law. Yi Jiming opened the Dao scripture. After looking at it for a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. This Dao scripture can allow one to reach Dao Imperial and Dao Attainment. It describes these 2 realms, which is suitable for you now. As for Law, Yi Xian asked. Return to 1? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. The Dao ancestor and the rest have not reached return to 1. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. What about Zhao Jiqing's generation? Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Although the Dao ancestor has not reached return to 1, Zhao Jiqing has definitely reached return to 1. Obviously, it's not because of the Dao scripture, but because of the Dao ancestor's generation. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Dao scripture is too profound. I can't understand it. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Even you can't understand it? Yi Jiming nodded. My realm is not high enough to understand it. For example, this sentence. Humans follow earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Dao, Dao follows nature. It's easy to understand from the words, but what is the true meaning of this sentence? Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Dao scripture has tens of thousands of words and there are hundreds of Dao scriptures. In this world there is not only Dao but also Law. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. This senior who created the Dao scripture is really an amazing person. Yi Xian nodded. In this world there are 2 kinds of experts, those within the Dao scripture and those outside. Could be said that the senior who created this scripture was absolutely terrifying. This was because he had created a complete cultivation system, and this cultivation system was the origin of all martial arts that were currently known to exist. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, we can study this Dao scripture. If we can understand the Dao scripture, it will definitely benefit you greatly in terms of cultivation. As for the Dao scripture, martial arts and heart sutras, I can't understand them at the moment. Yi Xian nodded. Take your time. As if thinking of something, he looked at the last Dao scripture. There were no words on it. Wordless Dao scripture? Yi Jiming opened the Dao scripture and when she opened it she was instantly stunned. Because there was nothing inside. It was empty. Wordless Dao scripture. Yi Xian and Yi Jiming exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Could it be that the whirling sect gave us a fake one? Yi Jiming shook her head. I don't think so. Yi Xian nodded. I don't think it's possible either. Yi Jiming suddenly said, it seems like Miss Xianchu hasn't returned to the whirling sect yet. Why don't we invite her over? Yi Xian put the Dao scripture away and disappeared from the hall with Yi Jiming. A while later, Yi Xian found Xianchu who was eating noodles in a small noodle shop in the city. Xianchu was stunned when she saw Yi Xian. She put down her chopsticks and looked at Yi Xian. Sup? Yi Xian said with a smile. Miss Xianchu, I have something to ask. Xianchu nodded. Speak. Yi Xian took out the last Dao scripture and placed it in front of Xianchu. Xianchu glanced at Yi Xian. Did the sect master give it to you? Yi Xian nodded. Xianchu fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, I've collected all 9 Dao scriptures. I promised the whirling sect's sect master that I'm willing to share them with your sect. Xianchu nodded. She opened the Dao scripture. When she saw the Dao scripture she was slightly stunned. Yi Xian frowned. What's the matter? Xianchu said with a deep voice. I've never seen a Dao scripture before because master taught me verbally. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, a voice came from behind Yi Xian. Alliance Master Yi, do you need help? Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman standing not far from him. It was Venerable Yu. Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, are you wondering why there are no words in this Dao scripture? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, there are no words in this Dao scripture. Yi Xian frowned. Why? Venerable Yu looked at the Dao scripture and said softly, Young Master Yi, what is the Great Dao? The true Great Dao? Yi Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu looked at Yi Xian. Dao is not only the Dao of the universe but also the Dao of nature. The Tao is in the matter and the matter is in the Tao. All things lead to the same destination and they all lead to the Tao. Everyone is pursuing Tao but they don't know that Tao is right beside them. Tao is you and you are Tao. Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu smiled. You don't understand, do you? Xian nodded. Venerable Yu smiled. On the surface it's easy to understand. But it's not so easy to understand the concept. Just like what people say, a mountain is not a mountain is still a mountain, and a mountain is not a mountain. This is a concept of life. Those who haven't experienced it won't understand it no matter what you tell them. As she spoke, she looked at Xian and added, Tao was not just a tangible substance, a thoughtful spirit, or a rational law. Instead, it was the invisible, ethereal, and spiritual root of the universe that created all of this. Matter, spirit, and law were all derivatives of Tao. Tao is the innate qi, the primordial chaos. Tao is the ancestor of nature, the origin of all things in the universe. Mr. Yi, this last Tao scripture is broad and profound. Even my whirling sect has only comprehended a little bit of it, and this little bit is like a drop in the ocean for this Tao scripture. When she spoke up to here, she looked at the Daoist scripture with a complicated expression. The ancestor of my whirling sect once said that the knowledge of this Daoist scripture is boundless. Even if he spent his entire life studying it, he wasn't able to study it completely. Not to mention studying it completely, he didn't even study a tenth of it. After a moment of silence, Xian asked, Senior, where did the owner of this Tao scripture go? Venerable Yu looked at Xian. It said that he died. Xian was stunned. But Venerable Yu nodded. Xian frowned. How is that possible? Venerable Yu shook her head. Nothing is impossible. Xian said in a deep voice. Did he die naturally or was he killed? Venerable Yu said softly, I don't know. However, it shouldn't be a natural death. This kind of expert can study Tao so thoroughly, so how could he die naturally? But if he was killed? Saying that, she didn't continue. Chapter 1440. Xian fell silent. If the owner of this Tao scripture was killed, then what does that mean? Xian didn't dare to think about it. At this moment, Venerable Yu suddenly smiled. Don't think about that. Young Master Yi, you already have 9 Tao scriptures and all of them contain Tao scriptures, martial arts and mental cultivation techniques. Moreover, I can see that you've already learned the Tao fist and Tao body. Since that's the case, then you might as well learn the remaining 3 Tao scriptures, martial arts and mental cultivation techniques. Xian looked at Venerable Yu. Senior, please guide me. Venerable Yu blinked. Young Master Yi, if I guide you, then you'll have to let me read the Tao scriptures. Xian smiled. I've already said that I want to share the Tao scriptures with your whirling sect. Venerable, you wouldn't think that I'm joking, right? Venerable, you laughed. How could I? Since that's the case, then I'll thank young Master Yi on behalf of the whirling sect. Xian nodded. Let's begin. Just as Bai Dizzy said, his top priority now was to improve his strength. This Tao scripture was the best way for him to improve his strength. As for the Tao scriptures, his understanding wasn't as thorough as the whirling sect. If he had the whirling sect's help, then he would be able to comprehend these Tao scriptures much faster. At this moment, Venerable Yu smiled. Young Master Yi, I didn't come alone this time. I've brought a few elders from my whirling sect. They've been studying the Tao scriptures in my whirling sect all year round, and their understanding of the Tao scriptures far surpasses ordinary people. With their help, young Master Yi will be able to comprehend these Tao scriptures better. As soon as she finished speaking, 4 old men suddenly appeared behind her. The 4 of them bowed slightly to Xian. Greetings, young Master Yi. Xian smiled. Then let's begin. Venerable Yu smiled. Let's go somewhere else? Xian nodded. In next to no time, everyone arrived at the sword hall that Xian resided in. Xian called Arrow and Lanxiu, Ajio and the others to the hall. At times like this, they naturally had to be there. This was because their study of the Tao scriptures would be of great help to them. Inside the hall, Xian took out all the Daoist scriptures. The 9 scrolls of Tao scriptures. Yuzun had a complicated expression as he looked at the 9 Tao scriptures. She did not expect Xian to have gathered all 9 volumes of the Taoist scripture. Meanwhile, Xian suddenly said, let's start with the first volume. The first volume? Yuzun looked at Xian. We're not going to start from the last 3 volumes. Xian smiled and said, I'll take the first volume. Yuzun glanced at the women and she understood. Yuzun looked at the four elders behind him. We will start from the first scroll. Be more specific. The four elders nodded. Soon the four elders began to explain the first volume of the Tao scriptures, while Yi Xian asked Guan Yin to record it down. Yi Xian was also listening attentively. This was because the four elders were very detailed, and there were many points of knowledge that he and Guan Yin did not discover. It was worth mentioning that Nian Nian was also at the side. He was also listening. No one noticed that when the four elders were explaining the Tao scriptures, she would shake her head from time to time, as if saying that this was not right. Ancient God Abyss. At the moment when the Dark Abyss was destroyed, the happiest was naturally the Ancient God Abyss. They had fought with the Dark Abyss for many years and now the Dark Abyss was finally destroyed. In their star sector the Ancient God Abyss could be said to be the strongest. At the top of a pyramid, Zhou Xian stood quietly. In front of him was a white-haired elder. This person was his master and also the current leader of the Ancient God Abyss. The white-haired elder said softly, I heard that young Master Yi has gathered all 9 Tao scriptures? Zhou Xian glanced at the white-haired elder and nodded. The white-haired elder chuckled. In the current 5th dimension, there must be many places that need manpower. How about this? Let us personally go to the 5th dimension and see if young Master Yi needs any help. Zhou Xian had a strange expression. Was he going to help? He wanted to read the Tao scriptures. Of course there was nothing wrong with that. For the Tao scriptures, especially those like his master, the temptation was huge. Soon the two left the Ancient God Abyss and headed to the 5th dimension. In the Tao tomb. Inside the hall, the Lord looked at Luo Ho and the others and smiled. Don't you have anything to say? Luo Ho hesitated, then said, I've been quite free recently. Why don't we find a place to walk and relax? Aku nodded. Indeed. Why don't we choose the 5th dimension? The scenery there is quite good. The Lord laughed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. With that, they got up and left for the 5th dimension. 9 Tao scriptures. By now, who did not know that Yi Xian had gathered all 9 Tao scriptures? Everyone was envious of him. However, basically no one dared to have any evil thoughts. One had to know that even someone as strong as an Yuan had disappeared without a trace overnight. However, there were always exceptions. In the starry sky of the 5th dimension, an old man stood quietly. Beside him there was a young man. The old man looked down and said softly, I never thought that someone would actually gather all the Tao scriptures. Interesting. The young man looked down at the 5th dimension. Snatch it. The old man glanced at the young man. Snatch it? What are you going to use to snatch it? There are at least a dozen consolidation realm experts down there. Do you think the two of us can fight them? The young man coldly looked down at the 5th dimension. Just a dozen. The old man shook his head. A dozen consolidation realm experts is naturally not scary. The scary thing is this young Master Yi. What kind of existence is in Yuan? It was once a force created by second brother Dao. However, it disappeared without a trace in one night. And the whirling world, the major forces of the whirling world have all submitted to this young Master Yi. You can imagine how terrifying the two women who went to the whirling world are. The young man said softly, but grandfather will not give up, right? The old man smiled. Of course. Who doesn't want to see the complete version of the Tao scriptures? However, we can change the method such as cooperation. In any case, this young Master Yi is also sharing the Tao scriptures. In that case, sharing one more should not be a problem for him. However, we will have to pay a price. The young man was silent. The old man said again, as a person you must be able to judge the situation. My Nanyue clan has been able to survive for so many years because of one word. Caution. Many families and forces perished because they were too arrogant, too arrogant. As he spoke, he looked down at the 5th dimension and said softly, although our Nanyue clan has a deep foundation, we cannot afford to be reckless. The young man looked down. I heard that Yi Xian is the #1 among the younger generation. I want to meet him. The old man smiled. We can exchange pointers, but there is no need to become enemies. Do you understand? The young man nodded. Of course. The old man smiled. Then let us pay a visit to this young Master Yi. The two disappeared from the scene. Below, in a certain hall, Bai Dizzy looked at the old man and young man in front of him. You two are from the Nanyue clan? The old man smiled. Yes. Bai Dizzy cupped his fists. Forgive me for being ignorant, but I have never heard of this Nanyue clan. The old man smiled. Nanyue clan is quite far from here. It is normal that you have never heard of it. Bai Dizzy smiled. How far? The old man looked at Bai Dizzy. You know about Whirling World and Ancient God Abyss. Do you know about Xian City? Bai Dizzy frowned. Xian City? The old man nodded. Bai Dizzy shook his head. I don't know. The old man smiled. We are not from Xian City. However, we are quite far from it. Bai Dizzy looked at the old man. You are here for the Dao scripture? The old man nodded. Yes. My Nanyue clan also wants to look at the Dao scripture. Of course, we will not look for it for free. We can cooperate with young Master Yi. Bai Dizzy smiled. You're welcome. However, Alliance Leader Yi is busy now. I wonder if you can wait for a moment? The young man frowned. He was a little displeased. The old man smiled. Of course. Bai Dizzy smiled. It is not that I am neglecting you two. Young Master Yi has instructed that no one is to disturb him. So, I hope you two can understand. The old man smiled. It doesn't matter. Go do what you need to do. Bai Dizzy cupped his fists and retreated. Inside the hall, the young man said coldly, What arrogance! The old man smiled. We are the ones begging him now. As he said that, he glanced at the young man. Qing'er, you must correct your attitude. Because from the looks of it, my Nanyue clan does not have any advantage when facing this young Master Yi. We have a deep foundation, but the power behind this young Master Yi is even more unfathomable. The young man was silent. The old man continued. This time we are here to seek cooperation, not to seek enmity. Even if we can't cooperate, we must try our best not to be enemies with this young Master Yi. As he said that, he looked at the young man. Qing'er, if you want to become the clan's heir and inherit the clan, you must learn how to conduct yourself well. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are or how strong you are, the clan will not let you be in power. The person in power does not need to be too strong, but you must have a good head. Otherwise, if you are not careful, it will bring disaster to the clan. The young man was silent. The old man continued. Just cultivating is not enough. To become the clan's heir, strength is part of it, but emotional intelligence and conduct are what we old fellows value more. The young man said softly, I understand. The old man nodded. This time I brought you out as a test. As for what the test is, I won't tell you. Think about it yourself. If you pass the test, you still have hope of becoming the heir. If you fail, when we return, the clan will arrange for you to go to the trial grounds to cultivate. We will train you to be the clan's guardian and not the heir. Do you understand what I mean? The young man slowly clenched his right hand and lowered his head in silence. The old man glanced at the young man. Compared to the other heirs, your only advantage is that you are stronger than them, but... At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. I wonder if young Master Yi is here? The voice was very familiar. The young man frowned. The old man said in a deep voice, He is here too. As he said that, he stood up and left. Outside the hall, Bai Dizzy was receiving a young man in a luxurious robe. Nanyue Xiu. He was also one of the young masters of the Nanyue clan. Nanyue Xiu bowed slightly to Bai Dizzy. Senior, I am the 7th young master of the Nanyue clan. I am here to see young Master Yi. Bai Dizzy glanced at Nanyue Xiu. I'm sorry, young Master Yi is in seclusion. Nanyue Xiu smiled. All right, I will wait for him. As he said that, he took out a storage ring and put it in Bai Dizzy's hand. Senior, this is a Dao pill. If you are trying to reach the Dao realm with the help of this pill, your chances will increase by at least 50%. Of course, with Senior's talent and strength, reaching the Dao realm is nothing to you. However, this is Junior's gift. I hope Senior will accept it. Hearing this, Bai Dizzy's expression changed. P.S. In the book review section there is a reader who keeps scolding me. His scolding is very unpleasant. He comes every day to greet me and my family. To be honest, I really don't understand why he hates me so much. The insults between the lines are as if I am the murderer of his father. Moreover, when he scolds you, you can't scold him or even ban him. If you ban him, he will go to the book group to scold you or change his account to scold you. Just like before, a reader wrote an outline for me and asked me to write it according to his outline. I ignored him. 2 days later, he messaged me and scolded me on QQ crazily. He said all kinds of nasty things like how my family deserved it and so on. Sometimes I couldn't help but reply, "Get lost," and he would say, Hey, is this how an author is? Is this all you have? I was speechless. I know my own limitations. This is my second book. I'm not a newbie, but I'm not an old man either. I have a lot of shortcomings, but I've been working hard, hoping to write better. After all, this is my job. If it's not good, you can criticize and deserve to be criticized. You can even scold me, but just scold me, there's no need to involve my family. Actually, some readers don't know that some of their good suggestions in the book review section have been integrated into the book, because I have to admit that some of the readers' ideas are really awesome. In the end, many people are debating which of the three swords is the strongest. In your heart, who do you think is the strongest? Also, Yi Xian's true identity will slowly be revealed. Chapter 1441. Daocore. He would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. After all, he by Dizzy was now at Dao controlling realm. Achieving Dao realm was his goal. However, he didn't accept it. Bai Dizzy smiled. Young master, this gift is too expensive. This old man can't accept it. As for meeting Alliance leader Yi, you can wait with your clansmen for a while because young master Yi is about to come out. He cupped his fists and left. Nanyu Xiu's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect this old man to be able to refuse this temptation. Bai Dizzy naturally refused this temptation. Take people's hands and break them. Could be said that in the fifth dimension, other than Yi Xian, he had the greatest authority. If he was corrupt, the impact wouldn't be bad. Most importantly, if his subordinates followed his example, then wouldn't his original intention of establishing order be destroyed? Why did he, Bai Dizzy, submit to Yi Xian? Was it because of his future? No. He wanted to rebuild order. Nanyu Xiu put away the pill and looked at the old man and young man not far away. So it's Elder Qi and Brother Qing. Nanyu Xiu smiled. Seventh young master is also here. Nanyu Xiu nodded. Gathering Dao scriptures is such a big event. I naturally came to join in the fun. Nanyu Qi said softly, it seems that Xian City and the other clans should also know. Nanyu Xiu smiled. That's for sure. However, as far as I know, Xian City's city lord is currently doing his best to investigate this young master Yi. I wonder what their attitude is. Nanyu Qi frowned. Investigation. Nanyu Xiu nodded. I don't know what they are investigating this young master Yi, but it's definitely not simple. He looked at Nanyu Qi and smiled. Grand Elder, this is not a private matter, so I hope we can cooperate. Nanyu Qi said solemnly, of course. Internal strife was bound to happen in a big clan, but it definitely depended on the situation. Infighting when there were external enemies was definitely a big taboo in the family. The ancestor of Nanyue had once left behind his last words. The position of heir could be fought over, but they could not ally with outsiders to act against their own people. If someone did this, then anyone in the clan could summon the ancestor. He left behind a wisp of his soul to severely punish those who colluded with outsiders. The reason why the Nanyue clan was able to maintain its prosperity for so many years was largely related to the last words left behind by this ancestor. Because no one dared to act recklessly. Even if you become the clan leader, if you don't get the position right, once the ancestor's soul fragment appears, you'll still be doomed. They could fight for it, but it has to be healthy competition. Nanyue Xiu looked around and smiled. Elder Qi, when I came, I took a stroll around the cosmos. Did you notice something? This place isn't normal. Nanyue Qi asked, what do you mean? Nanyue Xiu whispered, if I'm not wrong, this young master Yi is very ambitious. He wants to rebuild the doubting order of the past. Nanyue Qi was silent. Nanyue Xiu continued, moreover, the people here believe in this young master Yi. In their hearts, young master Yi is God. At this point he looked at Nanyue Qi. If I'm not wrong, the power of faith is going to appear again. Nanyue Qi whispered, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Nanyue Xiu smiled, it really won't be that easy. However, this young master Yi isn't that easy to bully. This time, let's see if those people dare to suppress him. Nanyue Qi said in a deep voice, wasn't the doubting at its peak in the past? Wasn't it suppressed to the point of extinction? If it wasn't for that Zhao Jiqing, the doubting would have been extinct. But wasn't she exiled in the end? Nanyue Xiu shook his head, it's different. Very different. Nanyue Qi asked, what's different? Nanyue Qi said with a smile, I've investigated. Young Master Yi and the doubting were rivals. However, when that Qingzhu saw Yi Xian, he immediately killed the Dao ancestor's body and made Yi Xian the Dao Lord. In other words, that Qing Zhu thinks highly of young Master Yi. And there must be something behind this. Nan Yueqi said in a deep voice, the force behind young Master Yi. Nan Yueqi nodded. 3 people have appeared before. The first one killed a human venerable from the dark abyss with a clone. We don't know how strong this person's force is. We also don't know where this person came from. The second person was the white-robed woman. She had destroyed An Yuan with a single punch, and her strength was definitely far beyond the consolidation realm. She might have even reached the legendary level or even higher. Even Xian City would have to be wary of such an expert. There's also that swordsman woman. She used to be the sect leader of the sword sect, Sidu Tingyun. Although she doesn't fight much, she might not be weaker than that white-robed woman. She looked at Nan Yueqi. These 2 are enough to intimidate Xian City in that place. Nan Yueqi said in a deep voice, they can intimidate but they might not be afraid. Nan Yueqi smiled. Yes. Young Master Yi wants to rebuild order and restore faith energy. This is equivalent to touching someone's interests. Moreover, young Master Yi has the complete version of the Tao scripture. That place will definitely be tempted. They don't have a choice. Once young Master Yi rebuilds order, then does doubting those who were exiled like this Qing Zhu mean that Yi Xian will save them? Once they come out, do you think that place will let Yi Xian save them? Nan Yueqi was silent. Nan Yueqi said softly, this place looks peaceful but it's not. Danger lurks everywhere. This time it's also a challenge for our Nan Yueqi clan. Following young Master Yi we can share the complete version of the Tao scripture, but it might also bring trouble to ourselves. Nan Yueqi was silent. Nan Yueqing suddenly said, we can use something to exchange with young Master Yi. After seeing the Tao scripture we will no longer have anything to do with him. Nan Yueqi shook his head. Nan Yueqi looked at Nan Yueqing and smiled. 9th brother, if this young Master Yi is as simple as you, then it would be great. Nan Yueqing frowned. What do you mean? Nan Yueqi smiled. 9th brother, do you think our Nan Yueqi clan has anything that can compare to this Tao scripture? Nan Yueqing's lips moved but he had nothing to say. Because there isn't. Nan Yueqi continued. Do you think this young Master Yi will let us enjoy his Tao scripture for free? Of course not. Look at that old man, he's not simple. Do you think this young Master Yi is a good person? Nan Yueqing was silent. Nan Yueqi smiled. If we want the Tao scripture we must pay a price and it might be very big. Nan Yueqi said in a deep voice. What does Patriarch think? Nan Yueqi shrugged. Patriarch wants me to understand this young Master Yi. Saying that he looked at the sky. Not only our Nan Yueqi clan, Xian City, Gu clan, Qi clan, and that place, they should have sent people to this universe. I believe they are not only investigating young Master Yi, but also the people behind him. Where did these people come from? Nan Yueqi looked around. My Nan Yueqi clan has also investigated, but there is no news of these people, right? Nan Yueqi nodded. Yes. This is the scariest part. These people behind him are so powerful, but not only there is no news of them in this universe, even our place has no news of them. Then here comes the problem. Where are these people now? They can't be hiding and cultivating in secret, right? Nan Yueqi said softly. Looks like I still underestimated this young Master Yi. Nan Yueqi smiled then looked at Nan Yueqing. Little brother Qing, I know you are very strong, but when you see this young Master Yi, please be polite. Even if we can't cooperate with him, we must not become enemies with him. Nan Yueqing was expressionless. I don't need you to teach me this. Nan Yueqi laughed. I'm just reminding you. At this moment, Bai Dizzy appeared in front of the 3. He looked at them. The 3 of you, Alliance Master Yi invites you. Nan Yueqi cupped his fists. Thank you. Under Bai Dizzy's lead, the 3 of them came to a courtyard. Yi Xian didn't meet the 3 of them in the sword hall because Yu Zun and the others were still explaining the Tao scripture. Inside the courtyard, when he saw Yi Xian, Nan Yueqi cupped his fists and said with a smile, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian also cupped his fists and said with a smile, The 3 of you are from Nan Yueqi clan? Nan Yueqi nodded. That's right. Yi Xian made an inviting gesture. The 3 of you please sit. Nan Yueqi and the other 2 sat around the stone table. Nan Yueqi looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, I won't beat around the bush. This time I want to represent my Nan Yueqi clan to cooperate with young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile, Tao scripture? Nan Yueqi nodded. Yi Xian smiled slightly. I wonder what Nan Yuechi clan wants to use to exchange? Nan Yuechi was speechless and didn't know what to say. What to use to exchange? Nothing can be used to exchange for it. At this time Nan Yuechi suddenly said with a smile, "Young Master Yi, what Elder Qi said just now was just a joke. Actually, the main reason we came here this time is to get to know young Master Yi." Yi Xian glanced at Nan Yuechi and said with a smile, "Is that so?" Nan Yuechi laughed, "Of course. We've long heard that young Master Yi is a genius, the number one in the younger generation. This time we came here to get to know young Master Yi and see if we can be friends." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't deserve to be called the number one in the younger generation. As for being friends, I, Yi Xian, am willing to make friends." Nan Yuechi smiled. "Young Master Yi, I wonder how much do you know about the history of Dao Ting?" Yi Xian looked at Nan Yuechi. "It's limited to this generation." Nan Yuechi thought for a moment and said, "Dao physique was once glorious. Incomparably glorious. Especially Lord Qing's generation. At that time, Doubting's faith power made all the worlds fear it. But later Doubting suddenly declined. Lord Qing's generation went missing. Young Master, do you know why?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." Nan Yuechi was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "I don't want to know either." Nan Yuechi was stunned. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You three, I'm currently studying the 9 scrolls of Dao scripture with whirling sex powerhouses. Are you interested?" Hearing this, Nan Yuechi was silent. Nan Yuechi was also silent. Nan Yueqing suddenly said, "We are interested, but will you let us see it?" On the side, Nan Yuechi shook his head. "This silly brother." Nan Yuechi also shook his head. Why should he let them see it? Chapter 1442. Yi Xian looked at Nan Yueqing and said with a smile, "Then do you think I should show it to you?" Nan Yueqing was about to speak, but Yi Xian got up and left. He didn't know what kind of force this Nan Yueqing was, but he was sure that the other party wanted benefits but didn't want to put in too much effort. Since that was the case, then there was no need to cooperate. Although he, Yi Xian, could share Dao scriptures, it was only with those who helped him. These people in front of him had never helped him, so why should he share them? He, Yi Xian, was not a good person, nor was he a charity. Moreover, he didn't share all Dao scriptures. For example, some self-release realm experts, he would only share the first and second volumes and not the last few volumes. Because doing so wouldn't bring any benefits to the other party and might even bring trouble to them. As Bai Dizzy said, Dao scriptures could be shared but not recklessly. After Yi Xian left, inside the hall, Nan Yuechi looked at Nan Yueshio. Nan Yueshio said softly, "What he wants, the three of us can't decide." On the side, Nan Yueqing frowned. "What does he want?" Hearing this, Nan Yuechi sighed softly. At this time he suddenly understood that Nan Yueqing was not suitable to be the clan's heir. Although he was the most talented among all the young masters, his strength was also the highest. But his understanding of the world was the lowest among all the young masters. This was also normal because Nan Yueqing spent most of his time cultivating in the clan and rarely dealt with outside matters. Therefore, in terms of understanding of the world, he was too lacking compared to the other young masters. On the side, Nan Yueshio said with a smile, "This young master Yi wants us to be together with him. In other words, he wants to tie our Nan Yueqing together with him." Nan Yueqing said solemnly, "Didn't you say that the force behind him is extremely powerful? Then what's the problem with being tied to him?" Nan Yueshio said with a smile, "It's a big problem. We all know that the force behind him is extremely powerful, but what about his enemies? Currently, the known enemies are not people our Nan Yueqing clan can provoke. But who knows if he has other enemies?" Nan Yueqing was silent. Nan Yueshio continued, "Being bound to young Master Yi has great benefits, but the danger is also great. Moreover, there are unknown dangers." Saying that, he shook his head and smiled. "You want benefits, but you don't want to put in any effort. It's human nature." Nan Yueqing suddenly said, "That Dao scripture, must my Nanyue tribe obtain it?" Nan Yueshio was silent. Nan Yueqing said again, "If we don't have to, we don't have to get involved in this mess." Nan Yueshio smiled. "Everyone understands this, but this Dao canon is also an opportunity for our Nanyue clan. You know what? Oftentimes, a single opportunity was enough to change an entire clan. Although it might also cause the family to be consigned to eternal damnation. But who doesn't want to give it a try?" Nan Yueqing shook his head. "This Yi Xian won't let us freeload." With that he got up and left. Inside the hall, Nanuetxiu smiled. It seems that this matter can only be decided by the patriarch. This was a decision that concerned the rise and fall of the clan. It wasn't something that he or an elder could make a decision on their own. Nanuetchi nodded. Let's go back first. With that, he and Nanuetxiu got up and left. Outside the hall, Nanuetxiu smiled and said, Elder Qi, you go back first. I want to take a stroll in this universe. Nanuetchi glanced at Nanuetxiu and nodded. Be careful. With that, he turned around and disappeared. Sword Hall. After Yi Xian returned to Sword Hall, Yu Zun and the others were still studying Dao scripture. At first it was research, but now it's a discussion. Nian Yan was also quietly listening. Yi Xian walked to Nian Yan and sat down. Seeing Yi Xian, Nian Yan suddenly showed a bright smile. Her right hand naturally hugged Yi Xian's arm. Yi Xian smiled and said, Do you understand? Nian Yan blinked. I understand. Yi Xian was stunned. Nian Yan looked at Yu Zun and the others in the distance. They said something wrong. Everyone in the surroundings fell silent when they heard Nian Yan, and all of them looked at Nian Yan. No one thought that Nian Yan was talking nonsense. Who is this person? She's a fifth dimension Tendo. Yi Ximing walked over to Nian Yan and smiled. Where did we go wrong? Nian Yan blinked and then looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, It's fine. Speak boldly. Nian Yan hesitated for a moment, and then pointed at a Dao scripture. This Dao scripture doesn't teach people how to attain Dao, but how to understand Dao. Because we are a part of Dao, but we just don't know it. Dao is ourselves, but many people don't know this and still seek it everywhere. At this point she glanced at everyone, and when she saw that everyone was looking at her, she hurriedly lowered her head. At the side, an old man from Whirling Sect said in a trembling voice, Please continue. Nian Yan glanced at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled lightly and encouraged her. Continue. Nian Yan hesitated for a moment and then she nodded. This scroll only tells us what Dao is, and how to understand and recognize Dao. It doesn't teach you how to attain Dao because you are a part of Dao, but you just don't know enough. As she spoke, she glanced at everyone in the hall. The direction of your research is wrong. The hall was silent. Yi Xian also fell silent. The direction was wrong. What is Dao? Actually, we are a part of Dao. We don't need to find how to attain Dao, but to find a way to understand ourselves. Understanding ourselves is to understand Dao. After understanding Dao, is there still a need to attain Dao? At this moment, Nian Yan pointed at the first Dao scripture. Escape. The escape mentioned in this scroll doesn't mean that you have to escape from the Dao, because even if you escape, you will still be within Dao. Yi Ximing asked, Why? Nian Yan looked at Yi Ximing. Because you are Dao, where can you escape to? Yi Ximing frowned slightly. Then what is escape one referring to? Nian Yan smiled. This escape one refers to uncertainty. Uncertainty. Everyone looked at Nian Yan, and one of the old men said respectfully, Your Excellency, what does uncertainty mean? Nian Yan grinned. Uncertainty is fate. Fate is also one of the Dao, but fate is uncertain. For example, what family you were born in, what environment you were born in, these are uncertain, but you can change fate, control fate. In other words, escape one. Through hard work you can change yourself, become that escape one, but you are still within Dao, just that you already have the ability to control your own fate. Yi Ximing said solemnly. In other words, no matter what we do, we are still within Dao? Nian Yan nodded. From this scroll, that's the case. Because you are a part of Dao. Speaking of this, at this point she hesitated, then said, But if you are very, very strong, you can defy Dao. Yi Ximing was a little confused. Defy Dao? Nian Yan nodded. Dao exists, but it can be defied, broken, and even destroyed. Yi Ximing said solemnly. How to defy? How to break? How to destroy? Nian Yan blinked. I don't know. Yi Ximing. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. Then what do you know? Nian Yan giggled. I only know this much. Yi Xian. At this time Venerable Yu suddenly said, Why don't we let her help us? Yi Xian looked at Venerable Yu, and Venerable Yu said solemnly, Her understanding of these Dao scriptures far surpasses ours. With her help we can better understand these Dao scriptures and then record them down. At that time you can use the Dao scriptures we have recorded to teach the experts of the fifth dimension. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled. Of course. As he spoke he looked at Nian Yan. Nian Yan, help them look at this Dao scripture, okay? Nian Yan nodded. Okay. Yi Xian gently rubbed Nian Yan's little head. His intuition told him that Nian Nian was about to recover her memories. Venerable Yu and the others continued to study the Tao scriptures, while Yi Xian came to a courtyard. He sat cross-legged on the ground and slowly closed his eyes. Kill sword. This was what Situ Tingyun had taught him before she left. Previously, he had been busy and did not have the time to cultivate it. Now he decided to cultivate this sword technique. Like what Bai Dizzy said, was the crisis really resolved? No. This might just be the beginning. No matter what, like what Bai Dizzy said, his top priority now was to increase his strength. Only with great strength could he face everything. Kill sword. One sword, one kill. After understanding this instant kill sword, Yi Xian's expression gradually became solemn. This sword technique's strength far surpassed his imagination. It could be said that it was the most suitable sword technique for him to cultivate. The single sword of life and death and single sword of soul were taught to him by the plain-dressed woman. However, the strength of these two sword techniques depended on his sword Dao cultivation and realm. Evidently, his current sword Dao cultivation and realm were not enough to display the true power of these two sword techniques. However, this instant kill sword was different. This sword technique was just right for him to cultivate. After a while, Yi Xian started to study this sword technique. Xian City. In the city lord's mansion, an old man quickly walked to a side hall. The old man bowed respectfully towards the side hall. City lord, I have investigated. A woman's voice came from inside the hall. Speak. The old man said in a deep voice. The plain-dressed senior in my Xian city is the Dao protector of the fifth dimension's young master Yi. After a moment of silence, the woman's voice came again. Are you sure? The old man said in a deep voice. Absolutely sure. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a woman walked out. The old man hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at the woman. The woman looked towards the sky and said softly, his Dao protector. At this time the old man said again, the Dao sect's second brother sent someone to Xian City, saying that he hopes that we can deal with young Master Yi together. After the matter is done, he will share the Dao scripture with us. The woman said softly, share the Dao scripture. What a tempting condition. The old man said, City Lord, are you going to agree to the Dao sect? The woman walked into the distance. Prepare a big gift and send it over personally. You will personally deliver it. You understand what I mean, right? The old man was stunned and then said, to the Dao sect. The woman stopped and turned to look at the old man. Can you take that woman's sword? The old man was speechless. The woman asked again, can my Xian city take that woman's sword? The old man was speechless. The woman blinked. Since you can't, then why are you asking such a stupid question? Of course the gift is for young Master Yi. Remember, don't be stingy. Also send some pills and whatnot. Let him feel the great kindness of our Xian city, understand? The old man was speechless. P.S. Can you let me feel your great kindness? I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 1443. The woman slowly walked to the front of a pool, and the old man stood respectfully behind her. From the beginning until the end, the old man hadn't even raised his head to look at her. It was out of respect, but it was also out of fear. The woman wore a white robe with a violet ribbon tied around her waist, and she had a graceful and slender figure. She sat on a rock by the side of the pool and she gazed at the pool before her. A school of small fish had surrounded her. The woman looked at the school of wandering fish and her thoughts had already drifted away. The woman in a plain dress. At this moment, her mind was filled with that woman in a plain dress. On that day, a woman in a plain dress had entered Xian City and instantly killed 3 extraordinary experts of Xian City right in front of her. Those 3 extraordinary experts of Xian City couldn't even withstand a single attack from that woman. Terror. She'd never felt terror in her entire life. But on that day she'd felt terror for the first time. What was the greatest taboo on the path of the martial Dao? Naturally it was fear. She challenged the woman in a plain dress. However, she hadn't been able to withstand a single attack from the woman. After the woman attacked, it wasn't terror that she felt, it was despair. At that instant it was the first time she'd felt so weak. However, the woman in a plain dress hadn't killed her. The woman opened her palm and there was a portrait there. It was of Yi Xian. The woman had left it for her. The woman gazed at the portrait and spoke softly, the person in the portrait is in the 5th dimension? The old man nodded. Yes. As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before he continued. According to my investigations, this young Master Yi has gathered all 9 scrolls of the Tao scriptures. The Tao scriptures? The woman grinned. Gathering the Tao scriptures. That's quite interesting. The old man spoke in a low voice. Moreover, this young Master Yi has become the Lord of Daoting, and he was personally chosen by Lord Qing. The woman's beautiful brows knit together when she heard this. The old man said, Lord Qing's objective isn't simple at all. The woman said, who destroyed the dark abyss? The old man spoke in a low voice, a woman in a white robe. She headed to the dark abyss and shattered it with a single punch. Her origins and identity can't be found. The woman looked at the old man. Even we can't find anything? The old man nodded. Yes. The woman said softly, from this, it can be seen that there is a huge force behind this young Master Yi. The old man nodded. Yes. Especially young Master Yi's bloodline. His bloodline is extremely special and its origin is untraceable. After a moment of silence, the woman asked softly, is there any movement from the Dao sect in that place? The old man shook his head. There's no movement. However, they should already be investigating Zhou Xian. As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before he said, will the Daoist sect in that place let the matter rest? The woman shook her head. I won't. The old man frowned slightly. Do they still dare to target young Master Yi? The woman looked at the pool in front of her and said softly, why not? Just a white-robed woman and a swordsman woman won't be able to scare them. As for the plain-dressed woman, I think they probably don't know her true strength. The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, should I remind the gate of Tao in that place? The woman glanced at the old man. Do you think they'll believe it? The old man was silent. The woman chuckled. Don't talk about them, even we won't believe it. As she spoke, she raised her head to look at the horizon and said softly, because she's so strong that it's beyond our understanding. The old man said, if we become friends with young Master Yi, I'm afraid the gate of Tao in that place will. The woman recollected her thoughts, stood up and walked into the distance. We can provide some help and information to young Master Yi. As long as we don't send experts to the 5th dimension to help him, whether it's the gate of Tao or that place, they won't say anything. The old man nodded. Understood. The woman said again, it's not convenient for me to go to the 5th dimension. I'll leave this matter to you. The old man bowed slightly. Don't worry, City Lord. This old servant will definitely take care of it. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and said, some forces might not be that friendly towards young Master Yi. The woman said, that's their problem. As she spoke, she walked into the distance. When you go, bring a big gift. Of course, if there's anything he needs help with, try your best to satisfy him. After all, the gate of Tao and that place haven't started fighting yet. You can help however you want. The old man nodded. Understood. In the 5th dimension. Inside the palace. Zhou Xian had been meditating for 3 days. In these 3 days he didn't even take a step out of his room. He was studying that instant killing sword. While Zhou Xian was meditating, some especially powerful auras appeared in the starry sky of the 5th dimension. This made Bai Dizzy quite worried. He knew that some mysterious forces that even the doubting had never heard of had appeared. Just like the Nanyue family. The complete version of the Tao scripture was too tempting. Which force wouldn't be tempted? More and more mysterious experts came to the 5th dimension. Fortunately, no one dared to act recklessly. The current 5-dimensional universe was still very intimidating. After all, the dark abyss had just been destroyed and the whirling world had surrendered. Before figuring out Zhou Xian's background, no one dared to act rashly. Inside the Sword Palace, Yuzun and the rest were still studying the Tao scripture. Unlike before, with the addition of Nian Nian, their progress was godly. A total of 7 Tao scriptures were annotated by them in detail. Not only that, the Tao scriptures, martial arts and mental cultivation methods were also listed out for people to cultivate. The difficulty of the last 2 Tao scriptures was higher. Even Nian Nian would fall into deep thought because of a single sentence. After all, she hadn't fully recovered her memories. As for Zhou Xian, he was cultivating in seclusion. 3 days later, Zhou Xian suddenly left his room. He turned into a sword light and disappeared. Not long later, Zhou Xian came to a certain starry sky. After confirming that there was no one around, Zhou Xian stopped. He opened his palm and the executing heaven sword appeared in his hand. Xian suddenly looked into the distance. The next moment, thousands of feet away, the space there was torn apart and a sword light appeared. Instant killing sword. A smile appeared on Xian's face when he saw this. Instant killing a swordsman wasn't difficult, but it wasn't easy to cultivate it to Situ Tingyun's level. Speed. This instant kill sword was all about speed and the element of surprise. It was simply too suitable for him. In the following time, Xian started to cultivate instant killing sword like crazy. He wanted to raise the speed of instant killing sword to the limit. Situ Tingyun could kill people 2 levels above her, so could he. Moreover, he had the Dao body and the Naga Dragon clan's power, the Dao law of space and the sword domain. It could be said that he had a great innate advantage when cultivating instant killing sword. In the 5th dimension, a black-robed old man looked down from the sky. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared near the black-robed old man. The middle-aged man glanced at the black-robed old man and smiled. Boundless sacred land. The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. Dao sect. The middle-aged man smiled. Yes. The black-robed old man retracted his gaze and continued to look down. No one knew what he was thinking. The middle-aged man smiled. This Qingzhu really has a good eye. Changing masters with one move, bringing doubting back to life. The black-robed old man was expressionless. A deathbed struggle. The middle-aged man glanced at the black-robed old man and smiled. That doesn't seem right. Sir, this universe is going to have the power of faith again. The black-robed old man fell silent. The middle-aged man said again, not only did Qingzhu give the Dao seal to Xian, but he also gave his destiny god seal to him. Sir, are you guys panicking? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. Your Dao sect's precious Dao scripture has fallen into someone else's hands. Don't you feel ashamed? The smile on the middle-aged man's face gradually disappeared. The black-robed old man said again, when An Yuan was destroyed, your ancestor didn't even dare to fart. If I were you, I would be too embarrassed to come out and embarrass myself. The middle-aged man laughed. Didn't the boundless sacred ground say that you guys will kill whoever dares to cultivate the power of faith? Look, Xian is not only cultivating the power of faith, but he is also rebuilding the order and letting the 3,000 Dao guardians cultivate the power of faith. Go kill him now. The black-robed old man looked at the middle-aged man with killing intent in his eyes. The middle-aged man smiled. Sir, it's meaningless for us to fight against each other. How about we talk about cooperation? The black-robed old man was expressionless. What cooperation? The middle-aged man smiled. Both of us want Xian dead, right? The black-robed old man kept silent. The middle-aged man continued. But for now we have to deal with the mysterious force behind Xian first. Both Dao sect and the boundless sacred ground know nothing about the force behind him, right? The black-robed old man didn't say anything. The middle-aged man continued. Xian has obtained the scripture of Dao. I believe it won't take long for him to understand the 9 volumes of scripture of Dao and summon the spirit of Dao. Once the spirit of Dao appears, it will be very difficult for us to kill him even if the person behind him doesn't show up. What's more, Qingzhu handed the Dao Ting to Xian. Once the order is built, those who were exiled by you guys might get the power of faith again. The black-robed old man's eyes turned gloomy. The middle-aged man said, now we have to admit that both Dao sect and the boundless sacred ground will not be able to deal with the person behind Xian alone. But what if we join hands? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. You still don't understand the situation. We don't even know what the force behind him is. And the mysterious force that even you and we don't know. Do you know what it means? It means the person behind him might come from a place that we don't even know. The middle-aged man smiled. He said he is the son of the 9-dimensional plane. The black-robed old man sneered. Do you think it's funny? The middle-aged man frowned. The black-robed old man said again, how can you be so sure that what he said is false? Just because we haven't been to the 9-dimensional plane, we think there is no 9-dimensional plane, right? As he said, he raised his head and looked deep into the starry sky. He said softly, what if he is really the son of the 9-dimensional plane? The middle-aged man looked at the black-robed old man. So, the boundless sacred ground is going to give up? The black-robed old man glanced at the middle-aged man. We just don't want to underestimate him. Of course, if the force behind him is too powerful, we have to give up. After that, he turned around and left. Chapter 1444. In the starry sky, the middle-aged man was silent. At this moment a voice came from behind him, "They will not let Zhou Xian live." The middle-aged man turned around. When he saw who it was, he quickly bowed respectfully. Court head. Taoism was divided into Wuyuan Court and Wenyuan Court. The person in front of him was the court head of Wenyuan Court, Wen Tianyu. Wen Tianyu nodded slightly. "No need to be so polite." The middle-aged man hesitated and said, "Court head Wen, the boundless sacred land." Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "The boundless sacred land cultivates the power of faith. The power of faith is their foundation. The doubting also cultivates the power of faith. There is an irreconcilable conflict between them and the doubting." The middle-aged man asked softly, "Why?" Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "The doubting's power of faith is to establish order for all living beings, to create peace and make the world a better place. The reason why the doubting was so powerful was that their power of faith was very pure. Moreover, it was the voluntary belief of the people in the world. But the boundless sacred land is different. Their power of faith is based on brainwashing and slavery. The boundless sacred land has hundreds of countries. Each country is their slave. Their power of faith is based on brainwashing and deception." Then he shook his head and smiled. "The boundless sacred land is afraid." Wen Tianyu said in a deep voice, "Why did the doubting lose?" Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "Because the doubting has affected the interests of some people." The middle-aged man asked, "Who?" Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "Us." The middle-aged man was stunned. Wen Tianyu looked down and said softly, "They establish order with the 3,000 Great Tao. The core of the 3,000 Great Tao is the Tao scripture and the Tao spirit. They want to awaken the Tao spirit. We Taoism will not let them awaken the Tao spirit." The middle-aged man hesitated and did not ask. It was better not to know some secrets. Wen Tianyu said softly, "It is not that we have to be enemies with Zhou Xian. But his rise will seriously threaten our interests and even overthrow us. So we have no choice." The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "The force behind Zhou Xian." Wen Tianyu looked down and said softly, "If it's just those two women, it's actually not that big of a problem. I'm just afraid that there's someone even more powerful than those two women behind him. Although this possibility is very small, it's not impossible. There was no hope. Otherwise." At this point he didn't continue. On the other side in the starry sky, Zhou Xian opened his palm, and the executing heaven sword fell into his hand. At this time he had trained his instant kill swordsman skill to the extreme. Although he was only in the Tao defense realm, he was confident that he could kill a consolidation realm expert with a single strike. Of course, that was under the condition that he caught his opponent off guard. The key to this instant kill was to catch his opponent off guard. As if a thought had crossed his mind, Zhou Xian opened his palm, revealing a storage ring in his hand. This was given to him by the white-robed Qinger before he left. There was no treasure in the storage ring but rather a map. It was a map of an unknown place. After looking at the map for a moment, Zhou Xian said softly, "Looks like I have to find some time to go there." Since this was left to him by the white-robed Qinger, this place would definitely be of great help to him. At this time Bai Dizzy suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian put away the map and looked at Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "People from Xian City have come." "Xian City?" Zhou Xian frowned slightly. "What kind of force is it?" Bai Dizzy shook his head. "I don't know. However, I've already investigated. What I know is that not only Xian City, but some mysterious forces have also come to our fifth dimension. Some people have already shown themselves, but there are still many people hiding in the dark." Zhou Xian said softly, "They should all be here for the Tao scripture." Bai Dizzy nodded. "I made a decision on my own." Zhou Xian asked with a smile, "What is it?" Bai Dizzy said, "I have already asked all the experts from the Tao Returning College, Xuanji sect, Shao clan and Xuanhuan sect to come to the fifth dimension. Currently we have 46 Consolidation Realm experts, 760 Tao Attainment Realm experts, and thousands of Tao Controlling Realm experts." Zhou Xian asked, "All of them are here?" Bai Dizzy nodded, "Almost all of them are here. After all, there is a complete version of the Tao scripture here. Who wouldn't want to come?" At this point he seemed to have thought of something and said, "There is one thing I have to tell you." Zhou Xian said, "Speak." Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "The reason why the doubting Qing Zhu and the others suddenly disappeared was not because they disappeared on their own. but because the doubting encountered a strong enemy. However, the doubting has no records of these past events. Even I don't know much. Now we need to rebuild order. I am worried. Yi Xian said softly. You are worried that the forces that caused the doubting experts to disappear will not accept us. Bai Dizzy nodded. Yes. Yi Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. I think you can meet some hidden forces. If you can befriend them, it will be very beneficial for us. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Bai Dizzy was about to speak. At this moment the space in front of him trembled. Bai Dizzy looked up at Yi Xian. Miss Guanyin said that the people of Xian City are waiting for you. Xian City. Yi Xian said with a smile. Come, let's go meet them. Bai Dizzy nodded. The two left. Dao City Sword Hall. As soon as Yi Xian entered the hall, an old man immediately stood up. The old man cupped his fists towards Yi Xian and said with a smile. Young Master Yi, I am Xian City's Zhou Yan, a butler of Xian City's city lord. Butler. Yi Xian glanced at Zhou Yan. This Zhou Yan's strength was at least at the peak of consolidation realm. This kind of expert was only a butler. Yi Xian said with a smile. Senior Zhao, please sit. Zhou Yan said with a smile. Young Master Yi, please sit. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, please sit. Zhou Yan hurriedly shook his head. Young Master Yi, please sit. Yi Xian blinked and said with a smile. Senior, then let's be casual. What do you think? Zhou Yan said with a smile. Just what I want. The two sat down. Yi Xian looked at Zhou Yan. Senior, did you come to my fifth dimension for the Dao scripture? Zhou Yan shook his head. No, we came to the fifth dimension this time just to get to know young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Zhou Yan. Not for the Dao scripture? Zhou Yan said with a smile. Indeed, not for the Dao scripture. To be honest, my Xian City's city lord wanted to personally come here to get to know young Master Yi, but now is a special time. If she comes to the fifth dimension, it might be a little disadvantageous to young Master Yi, so she asked me to come see young Master Yi. To put it simply, my Xian City wants to be friends with young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile. Senior, what you said makes me a little confused. Can you be more frank? Zhou Yan hesitated for a moment, then said, Young Master Yi, I have already been very frank. Yi Xian looked at Zhou Yan. Xian City wants to be friends with me? Zhou Yan nodded. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Has Qing'er been to your place? Qing'er. Zhou Yan was stunned. Who? Yi Xian said, A woman in a plain dress. Hearing this, Zhou Yan immediately stood up. He hesitated for a moment, then said, So it's that senior? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Zhou Yan said with a bitter smile. Young Master Yi guessed correctly, that senior has indeed been to our Xian City. Yi Xian was silent. He didn't expect that his guess would really be correct. Qing'er has really been to Xian City. Needless to say, the reason these fellows came to the fifth dimension to be friends with me is definitely because of Qing'er. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at Zhou Yan. Senior, did anything unpleasant happen between you and Qing'er? Zhou Yan hurriedly said. There was a little in the beginning, but it was a misunderstanding. We have already cleared up the misunderstanding. Yi Xian. Zhou Yan suddenly took out a spatial ring and placed it in front of Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my Xian City. Please accept it, young Master Yi. Yi Xian glanced at the spatial ring and his expression changed. There were a total of 50 million divine fortune crystals in the spatial ring. Not only that, there were also some medicinal pills, and there was no need to look at them to know that they were extremely precious. Yi Xian didn't accept the spatial ring. He looked at Zhou Yan. Senior, there is no such thing as an undeserved reward. I cannot accept this gift. Zhou Yan was stunned. He didn't expect that Yi Xian would actually refuse. Zhou Yan said, Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my appreciation, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, this is not a small token of my appreciation, this is a very big gift. Xian City wants to be on good terms with me, Yi Xian, and I am naturally more than happy to do so. As for this gift, please accept it, Senior. Also, please tell your castellan that I, Yi Xian, will visit another day. Xian City's goodwill was because of Qing'er. He was very clear on this point. He was naturally happy that Qing'er helped him, but he wouldn't use Qing'er's power to do whatever he wanted. Zhou Yan wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly looked at Bai Dizzy. Bai Di Xingjun, help me get a copy of the Daoist scriptures and annotations copied by Jiming and the others. Bai Di Xingjun glanced at Yi Xian, then turned and left. Soon he reappeared in the hall, holding an ancient scroll in his hand. Yi Xian took the scroll and handed it to Zhou Yan, smiling. This is the contents and annotations of the first 7 Daoist scriptures. Today I will give them to Xian City. This is equivalent to making a good karma. Zhou Yan smiled bitterly. Young Master Yi, you didn't accept my gift but still gave me such a precious thing. This old man doesn't dare to accept it. Yi Xian smiled. Take it back to the Castellan of Xian City and tell her that I, Yi Xian, have received her kindness. Also, I am very willing to be friends with Xian City. Zhou Yan hesitated, then said, I will. Yi Xian nodded. After Zhou Yan left with the scroll, Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. I suddenly thought of something. Yi Xian was a little curious. What is it? Bai Dizzy said, I sent someone to kill the plain-dressed girl. As he spoke, he suddenly slapped himself. I'm 2F** king stupid. Yi Xian. P.S. I have a dream recently. I dreamed that many people rushed to vote for me. I didn't want them but they still voted for me. Then I became the first in the monthly votes. And it was more than 10 times more than the second place. And I have been on the list for more than 10 months. Chapter 1445. Within the hall, Bai Dizzy sighed softly, and he had extremely complicated feelings in his heart. What sort of power was Dark City? He didn't know. But could a power that could casually take out tens of millions of divine fortune crystals as a gift be a small power? Moreover, such a formidable power had expressed goodwill to the 5th dimension just because of a woman in a plain dress. Could even be said to be slightly lowly. There was no need to think about it to know that the woman in a plain dress was absolutely formidable to the point of causing Dark City to feel despair. Moreover, he'd even sent people to kill her. When he thought up to here, he couldn't help but want to slap himself a few more times. How could I have been so stupid all those years ago? Yi Xian suddenly said, the important matter at hand is to figure out how many powers we don't know about, and we must figure out the ins and outs of these powers. Bai Dizzy nodded, yes. When he spoke up to here, he gazed at Yi Xian. Why didn't you ask Zhou Yan? Yi Xian smiled. He'll come back. Bai Dizzy was slightly stunned, and then he took a deep glance at Yi Xian. Brilliant. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll go see how their study of the Daoist scripture is going. As soon as he finished speaking, he left the hall. Dark City. Zhou Yan stood respectfully in a garden somewhere, and a woman was playing chess not too far away from him. She had no opponent and was playing by herself. A short moment later, the woman spoke softly. He didn't accept the gift and even gave you the contents of the Daoist scripture? Zhou Yan nodded, yes. The woman chuckled, interesting. Zhou Yan hesitated for a moment and asked, what does he mean by that? The woman smiled. He means that he doesn't want to bully us. Zhou Yan came to an understanding when he heard this. To put it bluntly, they definitely made friends with Yi Xian because of the woman in a plain dress, and it was the same for the gift. Moreover, Yi Xian's actions were telling them that he, Yi Xian, wouldn't bully others. When he thought up to here, Zhou Yan couldn't help but have a good impression of Yi Xian. The woman suddenly put down the chess piece in her hand. She stood up and said with a smile, you go again. You don't need to bring any gifts. Zhou Yan said softly, just like that. The woman nodded. What he needs the most right now isn't worldly possessions, but an understanding of the various forces. Send him a copy of the detailed information of all the forces. Zhou Yan hesitated for a moment and then he said, Taoism and the boundless Holy Land? The woman smiled and said, even if we don't send him off, he will find out soon enough. Zhou Yan nodded, understood. He paused for a moment before continuing. Our people are still investigating the people behind young Master Yi. Should we continue investigating? The woman shook her head. No need. Zhou Yan bowed respectfully and was about to leave. Meanwhile, the woman said, young Master Yi is at the Dao control realm now? Zhou Yan nodded, yes. However, his aura is thick and vigorous. His battle prowess probably far surpasses that of ordinary Dao attainment realm cultivators. After a moment of silence, the woman suddenly said, although he has the Dao scripture, I'm afraid he still has some problems on how to reach the Dao. Zhou Yan hurriedly said, I understand. Obviously, the city lord wanted to help Yi Xian reach the Dao attainment realm. After a moment, Zhou Yan left. In the garden, the woman slowly closed her eyes and chuckled. This might be the best chance for my Xian city to rise. Because besides her, there was no one outside right now. She knew how powerful the woman in a plain dress was. While everyone was thinking about how to scheme against Yi Xian, Xian City was secretly helping Yi Xian and establishing a friendly relationship. She didn't ask for any other benefits. In the future, a single word of advice from the woman in a plain dress would be enough to change the fate of an expert of her level. In the five-dimensional universe. In the Sword Hall. Everyone was surrounding Nian Nian. Nian Nian was reading the 8th Tao scripture. She was reading it very carefully and would think from time to time. While she was thinking, no one dared to breathe loudly for fear of disturbing Nian Nian. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side. She glanced at Nian Nian, who was thinking in the distance, and said softly, "Is she going to recover her memory?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, "I feel that she is a little different from before." Yi Xian nodded. He looked at Nian Nian in the distance seriously. The current Nian Nian was indeed a little different from before. But his intuition told him that Nian Nian might not recover her memory so easily. If she deliberately lost her memory, then there must be a deeper meaning. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "We have recorded the 1st to 7th Tao scripture martial arts and excitement in detail." As she said that, she opened her palm and a scroll appeared in front of Yi Xian. "This is the 7th Tao scripture martial arts and Tao scripture mental cultivation method." Yi Xian opened the scroll and 3 large words appeared in front of him. "Fen Tianju." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Fen Tianju?" Yi Jiming nodded. "This is a palm technique. Its power is far above Tao fist. One palm burning the heavens. If paired with this Tao scripture mental cultivation method, its power can really destroy heaven and earth. Especially its power, it has a fatal restraining effect on the origin of the world." As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. "This palm is very special. It is specially used to destroy the world. If you cultivate it, you must use it carefully." Yi Xian opened the scroll and took a look. A moment later, his expression gradually became solemn. The power of this Fen Tianju slightly exceeded his expectations. Just as Yi Jiming said, the lethality of this Tao scripture martial arts was too terrifying. If it was used in the 5th dimension, the 5th dimension might not be able to withstand it. Because this Tao scripture martial arts naturally countered the origin of the world. Once it was used, the origin of the 5th dimension would definitely die. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian and the others in the distance. "Have the 8th and 9th Tao scripture martial arts come out?" Yi Jiming shook her head. "Not yet. However, there is some progress on the 8th Tao scripture martial arts." Yi Xian softly said, "The 8th Tao scripture martial arts is probably even more terrifying than the 9th Tao scripture martial arts." Yi Jiming nodded. "Yes." As she said that, she hesitated for a moment before continuing. "The whirling sect." Yi Xian smiled. "Are you trying to say that the whirling sect knows everything about the Tao scripture?" Yi Jiming nodded. Yi Xian lightly smiled. "They gave me the 9th Tao scripture martial arts. I still have to give them this bit of benefit. Otherwise, I would be too much of a scum." Yi Jiming nodded. "Good. One more thing, the Tao scripture martial arts and Tao scripture mental cultivation methods that we have recorded. Are we going to give them to the experts of the 5th dimension to cultivate?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. However, we can't give them to them casually. Especially the Tao scripture martial arts and mental cultivation methods. We can make them into a reward so that everyone has a goal to pursue. If they get it too easily, they won't cherish it." Yi Jiming smiled. "You are really too generous." Yi Xian shook his head. "This is what I originally promised them." Yi Jiming nodded. "Good." Yi Xian glanced at Nian Nian and the others in the distance. Then he said, "I will go and cultivate this Tao scripture martial arts first. If anything happens, call me at any time." After saying that, he turned around and left. Not far away, Venerable Yu looked at the departing Yi Xian in silence. In fact, she was a little afraid. Afraid that Yi Xian wouldn't let the whirling sect study this Tao scripture. After all, the Tao scripture martial arts and mental cultivation methods in this Tao scripture were too precious. However, she didn't expect that Yi Xian still wouldn't let them leave. It was very obvious that Yi Xian was really willing to share all the Tao scriptures with the whirling sect. Thinking of this, Venerable Yu shook her head and smiled. At the beginning, she felt that giving the last Tao scripture to Yi Xian for free was not worth it. However, now it seemed that this was simply too profitable. The whirling world only gave away one Tao scripture, but they obtained 8 Tao scriptures. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the whirling world's forces and in Yuan were too stupid. In fact, Yi Xian didn't care too much about the Dao scripture. If they wanted the Dao scripture, they could totally cooperate with him. After interacting with Yi Xian, she realized that Yi Xian was actually a very easy person to talk to. If he was so easy to talk to, why did so many people still bully him? Venerable Yu shook her head. She couldn't understand. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian scanned his surroundings. This was a dead star field without any signs of life. This place was the most suitable for cultivation. Yi Xian opened his palm and the seventh Dao scripture martial art appeared in his hand. Burning heaven extinction. Yi Xian took a deep breath and opened his palm. Soon, a mysterious force suddenly appeared around him. The seventh Dao scripture mental cultivation method. Every Dao scripture martial art had to be paired with a mental cultivation method in order to unleash its true power. Therefore, he first cultivated the seventh mental cultivation method. Mental cultivation methods were easy to learn. In a short while, Yi Xian had mastered the Dao scripture mental cultivation method. Next, he began to cultivate burning heaven extinction. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the starry sky. The starry sky around him was dead silent. After sitting quietly like this for an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand. His palm was like a piece of magma. It was dark red. Soon, a powerful force appeared around him and the starry sky around him began to tremble. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stood up slowly. He frowned and his right hand trembled violently. At this moment, he felt that his right hand was like a volcano. That force was too violent. Not only that, he felt as if his right hand was burning. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat solemn. He realized that he had underestimated this burning heaven extinction. From the beginning, he knew that this burning heaven extinction's force was overbearing and ordinary people couldn't withstand it. However, he had a Dao physique. Moreover, it was an upgraded Dao physique. But at this moment, he realized that it was still not enough. The seventh Dao scripture martial art was too overbearing. He had to suppress it. Otherwise, this force would cripple him. Yi Xian began to use his own force to suppress it. However, he realized that it was useless. Moreover, the more he suppressed it with his sword Dao, the more powerful the violent force became. Soon Yi Xian's right hand began to crack. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression changed greatly. He didn't think too much and hurriedly activated his bloodline power. Soon, countless amounts of blood in his body converged towards his right hand. When the blood converged on his right hand, boom! In his right hand, the overbearing force immediately quieted down. It became obedient. Yi Xian,